Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and it's time for the 2018 end of the year Steam wishlist cleanup. So I'm going to scroll through the H's, which is what we'll be going through today. So basically what has happened is I've ended up causing myself to have way too big of a list as far as the Steam wishlist. This is basically the list of games that I'm thinking about buying, thinking about covering on my YouTube channel. It grows every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because on those days I stream Hearthstone and talk about video game news and look at basically every single game that comes out on Steam, and I have been doing that for at least a year now. Problem is, I should have been putting those games that maybe were worth buying on a secondary follow list and not on the wish list. So now the list is just too big, and it's mixed with things that don't deserve to be there in general and things that might deserve to be there but haven't got enough reviews to prove that to me. I want to be a little bit picky here. It's a very long list. Each of these episodes has been at least 3 hours to go through every single game on the wish list, just starting with one specific letter, and we're up to H. And so it's turned into quite a daunting process. The good news is that in 2019, Hacker Evolution will be the first one. We'll just look at that new fixed follow list, and it will be a lot shorter of an experience. So I'm going to use this game as an example, although there's probably good reason why I'm not going to take this one off the wishlist, even though it really doesn't follow the standards that I'm about to just explain. First thing we're looking for are different kinds of red flags. So if this was a 2018 game, I might put it on the follow list because well, in this instance I still wouldn't, because it has beyond my threshold of 25 reviews that are counted by Steam. The review numbers that are counted up here are games that people that purchased the game directly through Steam, so it excludes people that activated via key or got the game gifted to them in some other way. These are real people who put their money where their mouth is as far as Steam is concerned, and they can verify that. And if a game has less than 25, that probably means there's not enough fan base for it to even matter. Generally also, you want to see something that says positive or very positive or overwhelmingly positive. Although that system is a little weird because overwhelmingly positive isn't 100% out of any number of reviews. It's 100% or 90% out of a lot of reviews. So something can be rated positive and be 90% positive, and then something could be rated overwhelmingly positive and be actually only 70% positive and just have more reviews. But this is one of the many factors. If we get desperate, we'll look at the publisher and developer and see what else the game has, the publisher has published or the developer has developed, to see if the game is in good company. If I find a developer that's made nothing else, that really doesn't say anything. But if I find that he's made a dozen low-effort, terrible games, that is a problem. Now, I basically have every single Steam plugin for Chrome installed, and we won't be using much of them, but I will point them out. Like, I believe this is the Is There Any Deal plugin that gives you some more information. Like, the historic low price for Hacker Evolution was 49 cents, so when you're talking like a tenth of the price it's selling for by default, that makes a big difference. We'll keep an eye out for bundles, although actually I believe there will be also some bundles that are not from Steam and will take you to other stores. They usually have an icon to open a new page. Keep an eye out sort of on the DLC too. You know, a game could be free, it could also have $40 or more of DLC to actually play the game. We want to keep an eye out to make sure there is a single player component, and it's a pretty good single player component, because that's what I do as a YouTube video game critic. If I get a game that is just multiplayer, particularly if it's an older game, there might not be much of an audience to play the game, and there's definitely not a lot to criticize, because my multiplayer experience may not be that similar to other people's multiplayer experiences. We will be using the How Long to Beat plugin quite a bit. If they have data, which they're about 50-50 on that, it'll tell you how long it takes to beat the game just doing the main story, and then how long it takes according to the records to beat the game with main story and extras, and then how long to beat the game if you're a completionist. That's all useful information. And then we have Steam charts. We won't be using this information too much, but it does show some interest. If you were playing multiplayer games, knowing how many people were playing now, what the peak was today, that information might be useful. An all-time peak is probably more useful to me, because that tells me at the height of these older games what was its popularity, and I imagine Hacker Evolution was not very popular. And then you have Steam Spy, which tells you the average play time, which is different from the amount of time it takes to beat the game and how long to beat's information. Generally, the average play time is either a half to a third of what it takes to actually beat a game, and it includes everybody who launched the game for a minute and then never played it again, to people who left it running for 400 hours. I don't think the average playtime in the last 2 weeks says too much, particularly for older games. It's just an indication of how active the game might be now. We won't really be using the performance survey, but that can be useful. There are several other plugins that will sometimes show Metacritic data, reviews, and scores, and OpenCritic scores, and awards games might have had. Generally speaking, I don't pay any attention to the requirements, because games on Steam have their own weirdness. So my computer would clearly be way better than this requirement. That doesn't inherently though mean that it will run. You very well may fail just because I'm running on Windows 10 and this says it only supports Windows 7. And then if we get really desperate, I will come and look at the reviews. Generally speaking, I ignore the positive reviews, and I don't want to see super short reviews, negative or positive, because they don't usually have anything informative. Like, there's a lot of not useful reviews here on this side. But what I'll try to do is I'll try to find negative reviews and skim them. You don't want a review that goes on forever, which often that is, you run into things that are an entire screen width or longer. So that's where we're going to look for the red flags. Also, I forgot to mention, we'll keep an eye out for languages. If the game supports English and Russian, or English and traditional, or simplified Chinese, those games have a tendency to be what I call low effort bad games. Steam kind of calls them troll games, but I use a different phrase because I don't think it's as descriptive. Now, the reason why I'm keeping Hacker Evolution on the wish list is just because it is part of a whole series of hacker games that, for the most part, are the basics of what you actually would do without actually teaching you how to hack. So it is kind of a typing game and a computer terminal game. It's old school, definitely. It's from 2010. in all honesty, this is also kind of one of the games that I would want to own, and maybe I'd do a 30-minute spotlight. I'd probably go through a series of playing several hacker games because there's a lot of different versions of them. And it is probably for people who have already burned out on programming games, even the most complicated ones. I think that's when you start getting into the hacking games. But yeah, they're kind of cool. They really aren't going to teach you much. It's kind of basic knowledge in 2018 too. It's like, oh, you have to proxy your internet through a VPN so that people can't track you. That's basically what everybody should be doing at this point. Oh, you have a password cracker that's brute forcing a password? Anybody who's paid any attention to computers in the past 8 years probably knows what these phrases are and probably knows what they are doing. And see, this is where a game like this might be very educational in the eyes of people who don't really know it. Because, you know, sometimes playing the character of the bad guy or the story of a bad guy, although that's not inherently what these games are. Sometimes you're a good guy and a white hat hacker, sometimes you're a gray hat hacker, sometimes you're a black hat hacker and the bad guy, depending on the different versions of this game or the different missions. So this game continues to evolve, and here we have, from the same company in 2016, the same game. This might also be a little bit of a weird game because this is a clone of a game called Uplink. This is early access in 2016. That's kind of crazy too. So maybe I should actually take these games off the wishlist because it's Uplink that is the one I'd really want to play. And see, here's a game called Grey Hat that looks a little bit newer. The recommendation engine for Steam is not particularly good, and there's a lot of different ways you can depict hacking. Sometimes it is just boiled down to a mini game. In BioShock, you're hacking things by playing pipes. Opus Magnum is basically a programming game, although it's built around the concept of magic. So if you enjoy Opus Magnum, some of these hacker games might be the next tier of that. But at the very least, I genuinely would have put this game on the follow list, and then I would have really questioned 2 years of being in early access. But what I really need to do is point out the good version of this game, which is Uplink, which is the one I've played, and you notice it's a little bit more picturesque here, and it's from Introversion Software. So there's kind of two different developers. Introversion Software went on to make Darwinia, Multiwinia, Defcom. I thought there was some other Uplink games, Scanner Sombre. So yeah, this is rated 90% positive, whereas Hacker Evolution is not rated that well. I probably should pick my choices a little bit better. Yeah, and kind of looking at the reviews of other games, here's an example of a game that is in bad standing. I've been pretty much paralyzed in a lot of cases to make decisions, but I think in this case, yeah, the Hacker Evolution games need to be removed. If they are bad versions of Uplink, then that would just be a waste of time. So over on the right on my second monitor, I have 3 columns in notepads, and it's remove, put it to the top, and add it to the follow list. And so I'm going to add the Hacker Evolution games to the remove list and move forward. So we started rather early. I'm going to double check to make sure Uplink is in my wish list, but I suspect I already own Uplink. And to be fair, this 2006 Uplink game, it still is not particularly great. It's something you'll spend like 30 minutes on, and then you'll probably get bored with it unless you just super love it. And Opus Magnum would definitely be a better deal. There is Hacknet, which is a newer game, and maybe Hacknet in particular is better than Uplink, or maybe Off Grid. Haven't heard of that one, or maybe Darknet. So when you're starting to see here, here's Uplink has a Metacritic review. It takes 7 to 30 hours. Hackers Beat Exapunks is another game. A lot of these are just more programming than hacking, but they might have missions that are about hacking. Security Hole. So there's just been a lot of games that have come out a little bit more often, more recently, that add a lot more visualness to it. Introversion Software took them a long time from this 2006 release to get to a point where they could program games and make them look pretty good. If I was to look at a game like this, particularly since this is so old and it doesn't have a video, I would probably call this a low effort game. I would say this is MS Paint level graphics, because these icons probably were drawn in something like MS Paint. I would complain that there were black bars on the side. I would complain that there was blackness on the screen. I would thoroughly complain about how awful the UI is and how there's just menus and buttons everywhere. So there's been a lot of improvement since then. Uplink was probably a game that was installed on a few floppy disks and just a few megabytes in size too, so modern games certainly can fix that. So when you get to this 2017 Grey Hat game, for example, you have a Windows environment that looks at least like Windows 3.1 and with some kind of weird theme. You have a internet search, which that's certainly not something you'll find in Uplink. Then we get to Hacknet. Again, a lot of these interfaces are built around text, but there seems to be some big changes in the way things look. Introversion probably could make a newer, better version of Uplink, but again, not 100% certain how many people want to play this. Or then you get to something like Off the Grid, where it is half a hacking game and half actually walking around and interacting with things and embracing the idea of Internet of Things and there being devices to hack, compared to what Uplink would have been, where you're dialing in via modem to computers that are probably being run by government agencies or colleges, because no individual would have such a device. So yeah, this coming soon 2019 game, major increase in graphics. Of course, some of these also very well may be called hacking games and they are really just puzzle games in disguise. I think Darknet, for example, is probably an example exactly like that. Let's move on though. Hackers Beat is a rhythm game with hacker themes, and yeah, see, not really a hacking game, and more of a music game that's mixed reviews. So yeah, close that one. security holes from 2016. And again, you might play as a character who's a hacker, but this looks a lot more like Tetris, and that might be fun in its own sense, but that's not the style of game if you're trying to find that specific type of game. Hack Mud. MUDs, what do they stand for? Multi-user dungeons. They were the evolution of the game Rogue, I believe. So this is a massively multiplayer game that really doesn't have any single player experience. And it is going to be all ASCII pictures and text, so this would actually be really hard to cover. In fact, all these games would be really hard to cover, and I really probably just want to own a few of them as an example of supporting these styles of niche games out there. In a lot of ways, depending on what school a child is going to and how educated the teachers are that are teaching programming classes and computer literacy classes, you might learn more playing some of these games. Just in general, manipulating computers. You might also find some of these teach you how to use the Linux command line or the DOS command line a little bit more. At the very least, it will teach you about typing precision and how the computers are not programmed to guess what you're typing, so you have to have 100% accuracy on just spelling things right. This is DLC for HackNet. Alright, moving on from the hacker games though. That's probably all on the entirety of the list, wish list. We have a game called Haimrik, Hamrick, I guess. Let's see. Make words come to life in an action adventure game. This is 17 user reviews that are 68% positive. It's a typing game, which is sort of related to what we've been talking about. This is an example though of a game where I really don't have to I don't really have to do anything here. I can just put this on the follow list and come back next year and at the end of 2019 and say, are there more than my threshold of 25 reviews or credited reviews by Steam? I believe how this game works is you type specific words as you're also reading the story, and like the word under this character either does an action or causes the character to fall or something. That's what I'm guessing how that works. But I really don't have to know, and I really don't have to think about that, and there's a lot of games to look at. So don't pay too much attention to any ESRB ratings because they're not guaranteed to be accurate or true. You can, if you're not releasing in a store, ESRB let people fill out a form and self-report what was in their game, and then it would pop out a logo for online sale. That's kind of all they cared about. Which, you know, the ESRB is run by the ESA. The ESA is a lobbyist group for the video game industry, and it sometimes does some weird things that maybe in the short run protect the video game industry and microtransactions and some of the things people don't like, but in the long run are going to cause trouble because they're not actively self-regulating the industry as much as they should, and then that means governments are going to start stepping in to regulate the industry. Next we have Half-Life: A Place in the West. This is a fan-made comic for the Half-Life series. This really would only, oh, and it's tagged with sexual content and nudity. Interesting, it has this special blue box here too. It's a free-to-play game, but then Chapter 2 costs $1.99, and apparently there are more chapters. So, with the exception of buying the $3 soundtrack, you're gonna pay about $8 to read the full comic book, which is actually pretty expensive for a comic book. And I don't really have a reason why a fan comic book should be covered on my channel. I probably didn't understand what this was. It's being sold as a game, which is weird, but it's not really. It kind of, for comic books, if comic books were going to be sold on Steam, if they were just going to make a whole new storefront, Steam would do very well to hunt down the developer of a game, of a program called Comic Rack, and pay him a buttload of money and get him to continue working on developing that and integrating that into the Steam store as its own app. Comic Rack is a great app, you can download it now, but it's kind of hard for a community to stay around it when the developer basically disappeared. He went on sabbatical for a year and kind of gave up development on the game, on the program, but the program is programmed very, very well. But what Comic Rack offers, and this doesn't, is I'm not seeing a lot of features here to zoom in on panels. I'm not seeing anything here that would let you see other comics, sort other comics, like make it a better experience for the people that would want to read comics on a Windows PC, which I'm not sure there ever was too many people like that. Generally speaking, I think tablets are the better move there. And if you were to buy this, I don't see really any way you could play this on a tablet unless these are just PDF files, which they might be. So yeah, there would be a step there that would have to be made if they were going to start selling comics instead of just games and software and the occasional hardware and video. And also, I'm not sure there's enough of a fan base that you want to actually deal with as far as comic book fans. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. It's just on occasion we'll see some other things that claim to be games and they really aren't. There are choose your own adventure novel text-based things that are interactive text adventures that don't really come to the level of video game in my definition, because they literally don't have any video in them. Like video games in my mind are audio visual interactions. That this would also fail to be a video game because it doesn't have any video in it and it doesn't have any audio in it. So yeah, some things just should not call themselves video games if they're not really video games. There are other phrases. Next we have Halo Wars Definitive Edition. I'm a little surprised Halo Wars is rated so highly. I have not really played any of the Halo series, which might be a little shocking to some, but I'm particularly not into playing multiplayer games. So I would like to play the single player experiences for the Halo series and catch up. I kind of would like if Halo 1, 2, and 3 came to Steam, and that there was just an accelerated experience where you could play through the Master Chief story and get ready for the next Halo, which I believe is called Halo Infinity or Infinite. Although Halo Wars is a top-down real-time strategy game, and I don't think it really holds a candle to things like StarCraft or Warcraft, not to be confused with World of Warcraft, or Command & Conquer is a series. So while I guess I can just want a complete collection of the Halo games on Steam, this would be one that when I have to actually put my money where my mouth is, I probably wouldn't want to buy this one. You have a lot better argument to play Ages of Empires as far as a series from Microsoft Studios than Halo Wars. Moving on, we have Halo Spartan Assault, which is 68% positive with 16 user reviews in the last 30 days, but overall 80% positive for 2,971 reviews. And this is a top-down shooter, which, you know, I guess they took the real-time strategy elements out from Halo Wars, and this was 2014 actually. Let's see, when did this come out? 2017. Oh, so they went the other way. Halo Spartan Assault added they added real-time strategy to Halo Spartan Assault and came out with Halo Wars Definitive Edition. Although maybe Halo Wars originally did come out before Halo Spartan Assault. Either way, these are not Master Chief games. Like, these are side games that are on Steam. And at this point, as we're approaching the end of 2018, I really don't think Halo is the system seller for the Xbox, and Microsoft claims at least that they don't care if you buy their games on PC or on console. So the previous games should be available on Steam. Some of them are available on the Windows 10 store or through some other services. They're just not available on Steam. Continuing, we have Halo Spartan Strike, another non-Master Chief story. This is also a great excuse for why I really wouldn't ever buy these games. That they'd be so low priority, because you just aren't getting the true Halo experience here. Although Spartan Strike, to be fair, at least is 82% positive, where the other two weren't that well received. Getting off the Halo series, although, no, we could just double check here. Let's just double check and see if there's anything Halo that we didn't just cover on Steam. Nope. Yeah. So, yeah, none of the Master Chief elements are allowed on Steam, as even and now. Next we have Hand of Fate 2. I covered Hand of Fate 1. I liked it pretty well. I felt it might be a little repetitive and clunky. From what I hear, Hand of Fate 2, which really was only released like a year after Hand of Fate 1, it seems like they addressed a lot of things. It's kind of a unique game in the way it was developed. They basically couldn't program an entire hack and slash action game with like what you're seeing here, or didn't want to, and so instead they wrapped it around a kind of Dungeons and Dragons-esque experience where there is this game master that is telling you what's happening in your game experience, and then when you run into an encounter that involves you fighting, you come into what are really short, much easier to develop arena areas. But there definitely wasn't a big ogre in the first game. There's actually quite a lot of polish. There's some weirdness too about like DLC and just how much time commitment Hand of Fate 1 was. So generally speaking, I like to have a year in between the release, the coverage of one game and the next, and the sequel. But for this game, it might be better to even take a little bit longer time, just because there was a lot of hours you could put in this. And I'm pretty sure how long to beat says if you do the main story and extras, it's 33 hours, but there's probably no completionist path because you can just always play more and more. You can see there's already 2 DLC elements for the second game too. but it is definitely improved. So I am gonna put this on the top of my wish list. The reason, also one of the reasons, on top of the ones I've already said, that I want to get a better curated wish list and have games that I really am very interested in playing at the top of my wish list, is because besides being able to support me through Patreon, I ask people to support me, or I tell people that they can support me by friending me on Steam and gifting me a game from my wish list, or just any game they want to see me cover, or just gifting a gift card if they don't want to make the decision. So it's kind of imperative to clean this up and not have games that are mixed reviewed at 56% on the wish list, because also a lot of these games will be relatively cheap, and I imagine people would, as I become more popular and gain more support, people would start gifting me some pretty bad games because I stupidly added them to the wish list out of probably being too generous, which is exactly where I'm gonna put this. Like, I am a sucker for point and click adventures, but I am definitely not a sucker for black bars on the side, and I'm not a sucker for a game that looks like it is just a moderately low effort game. It seems like you probably go throughout a house with maybe a dozen different areas, click on things, pick them up, and that's it. Like, when I probably read this description, it's a story of a story-rich adventure with multiple endings. You wake up after a party in a mess and realize you need to get to work in an hour. When I read the description here, I probably thought this was slightly interesting. However, since January 9th, the people that have played it have not liked it. I imagine also that this developer hasn't released anything else that is particularly interesting. This is sometimes a red flag too. If you have two games that are unconnected in a bundle or giant bundles of games, particularly when you have entire bundles that, like, there's 10 different games in here for less than $10. That tells me that they're probably low effort games. Also, sometimes it's a red flag if it has a lot of achievements, because then you think it's an achievement game, or if it's talking about trading cards. Average playtime is apparently 30 minutes. Yeah. This game should be free. It's too short. It took me 20 minutes to get 100%. No story at all, just collecting objects, not so many to use on other objects to get achievements. The endings depend on what you do. The only difference is the final text you see. I paid 50 cents for it, and it's not even worth that much. So this is an example of a game that I don't need to keep it for another year and put it on the follow list. It almost had the entirety of a year anyways. We can just have that removed. Let's see, is this one tagged nudity or sexual content? Because heck, there are a lot of anime sex games out there on Steam. Apparently not. So some of these we may have to just jump quickly to the next game or scroll down. So we have Happiness Drops, is a falling block puzzle game that you can enjoy easily. So do you like Tetris, or perhaps Puyo Puyo Tetris, which is a little bit different? Do you like anime moe girls? Then this might be the game for you. It's 85% positive and 14 user reviews, though it's certainly not a big game. Let's see. Yes, this is actually Puyo Puyo Tetris, because the pieces drop and fall down. At least I think that's what Puyo Puyo Tetris is. Whereas regular Tetris, the pieces would not break and drop down. And it's competitiveness. $5 is probably not what this game is worth, but a lot of games are like that, so that's not a big deal. It's from Eras, a company I don't really recognize. Let's see. Yep, this game is a really bad knockoff of Puyo Puyo. I spent like 20 minutes on the first stage and neither of us was winning. For being a Puyo Puyo styled puzzle game, this is beyond lame. It's a spin-off game from the Happiness series. To be blunt, just stay away unless you're looking to collect for the series. For the series. Regardless of my playtime, which says it's 0.1 and that you used a key and got it for free. Let's see. Regardless of my playtime, it doesn't hide how shallow and bad this release is. The translation and story mode is laughable at best, and the mechanics are so shallow. Tetris 1.0 and looks like a field day. If it has any merit, is that the AI, for some reason, starts off each match completely stupid, I imagine is what this is supposed to be, and then somehow gains a mega mind by the end. If you even slightly start to do well, needs some rebalancing. So that wasn't particularly me skimming that article as much as just reading that article completely. Happiness drops can be removed. I do want to play Puyo Puyo Tetris and cover it, maybe. I mean, really, do you really need to cover it? We could see if there's a Puyo Tetris out there. Yeah, there is. In comparison, you could just play Puyo Puyo Tetris, which is 82% positive, 64 reviews in the last 30 days, and 79% positive over its lifetime of 1,000 reviews. Seems like you get a lot more characters and things, and these are more chibi animation style characters, but in all honesty, sometimes the anime girl games, even if they aren't lewd, like what we just saw, because that really wasn't lewd, sometimes you just could get side-eye playing that anyways. It's like two people who aren't unfamiliar with anime. Any anime girl is assumed to be all anime girls. So yeah, this is a much better experience. It's probably a lot more child friendly. It uses Denuvo for some reason. Some of the plugins do have warnings for like Denuvo, third-party EULAs. Generally speaking, I don't agree with games having third-party EULAs. You're already agreeing to one end-user license agreement, which is what a EULA stands for. But having to agree to another is ridiculous. 7 to 24 hours of gameplay. I was hoping that there would have been an age rating on this, but doesn't seem like there is. But a lot of different modes and the Japanese voice actors. In comparison, if you were to just search Tetris, there's also Tetris Ultimate, but that is a different game, certainly, and apparently at least Sega is using a very unique logo for Tetris. However, Ubisoft released this Tetris game in 2015 and it is 30% positive. So that is really, really bad for a simplistic Tetris game, and I can kind of see why. And that this is definitely below the level of quality of work that Ubisoft should be releasing. Or you could also play Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine from Sega. There's no reason to purchase Tetris Ultimate. Just buy Puyo Tetris instead. And I agree with that. So moving on though, we're supposed to be looking at the things starting with H. Next we have Hard Reset Redux. And this is one of those, what I'd classify as a AA game. It's a publisher that probably didn't have quite the advertisement budget, but enough to make something that at least looks like a AAA game. A lot of times these AA games are shorter, lesser known, not as well received. This one, for example, came out in 2016. I don't remember it coming out at all. It looks like a modern game of sorts. It kind of looks a lot like the Doom reboot, except for you're fighting robots instead of demons. So yeah, it's rated very positively in both time frames. It's $19.99. 6 to 11 hours, where a AAA game might be closer to 30 hours of gameplay, 30 to even 60 hours. Metacritic gives it a 73 score, so it's not amazingly great. Hard Reset Extended Edition. So at this point, reading a negative review is not necessary if the masses are saying it's good. But it's slightly interesting that there's two versions of this game, or two games in this series. This is from Flying Wild Hog, the developers that made Shadow Warrior and kind of nothing else. And its publisher is Good Shepherd Entertainment, which is an oddly named company, certainly, which has published some what I'd call AA games, or even maybe single A games. I'd say like Oh Sir, if I can pronounce the name correctly, is probably a single A game, closer than a AA game. Although, even in my own head, this single A AA system doesn't really make a lot of sense. There probably are half A games, and I might one day run into a game that I would consider a quadruple A game. So let's see, the last 30 days for a Hard Reset Redux extended edition is mixed 54%, but overall it was 84% positive, and this came out in 2012. So what I imagine, this game does not have widescreen support. Well, it says it does, but I'm seeing black bars. So I imagine what happened is the Redux game is a remake. Let's see. So there's a brand new version of the Cyberpunk Classic. I've never heard of it. That includes all the content of previous editions and adds improved gameplay, enhanced visuals, and additional content to make this the definitive version of Hard Reset. So it certainly would be, and this came out in 2016, it certainly would be a lot of work to play the same game twice, even if it is like a 7-hour game each time. But it might be interesting to do that, certainly. I feel like that's something I would do on my channel. So I don't have a real reason why I'd remove either versions, but there is also a very good possibility I'd spend 30 minutes in the extended edition, show it off, and say, well, this is the extended edition, and this is what it looks like, and this is the Redux version that came out 4 years later. 4 years is basically a graphics generation in video games. Things should look noticeably better after 4 years if you're doing a remake or a remaster. A lot of people don't put enough effort into remakes or remasters, and then they do end up looking very similar to the originals, but that should not be the case. Next we have Hard West, which is a turn-based strategy. I guess you'd call this maybe an XCOM game in the West, which might be slightly interesting. Although it seems like it has perhaps some demon killing functions into it too, like demon summoning elements. I want to see if we can see what the gameplay actually looks like. I'm not going to watch the entirety of this. Yeah, it really is just XCOM. You move your character into position, and then if they're close enough, they'll fire. If they're not, they'll just stay, or they'll take cover. Not 100% sure that I really want to play any of these XCOM style games because they have a tendency to take way too long. They probably are the evolution of a game series that I played when I was much younger called Heroes of Might and Magic, and every game instance, every mission you would take in Heroes of Might and Magic took 4 to 6 hours to play, so they were incredibly long. I think XCOM eventually does spend some effort to speed things up a little bit, but I don't think it does a great job at it. I don't think the gameplay style can. So for the commitment here, it would be 14 hours to 28 hours for a Western XCOM style game, which I don't see a reason why this would get removed, but I would have to make some decisions here. I believe I also own some of the XCOM series, so I'm probably pre-committed to that, or covering that first. Let's see, next we have a game called Hardcube, an arcade platformer for all hardcore lovers of toys. I'm not sure I'm a hardcore lover of toys. Let's see what the gameplay is. This looks like, to me, I suppose you call them Super Monkey Ball clones. The fact that there's just kind of solid colors on a lot of these objects, and it has this low polygon feel, tells me that the animator didn't really have any ability to animate textures. I've seen a lot of bad versions of games like this, and I'm slightly questioning whether there is such thing as a good version of this. You might also call this a Marble Madness clone. It's somewhat the same idea, but it's moved it to 3D. But yeah, this is probably not a game that I think I'd want to play, particularly if it's selling itself as being difficult to play, because that's just asking for frustration. Also, this game really doesn't have any kind of relevancy. Like, nobody's gonna bang down my door telling me that Hardcube needs to be reviewed. And it's an English and Russian game too, so it's probably a low effort game that's just getting animated pretty well. Let's take a moment to see what other games this developer has made. The Dungeon of Dynasty, which has 3 user reviews, Space Legat, Greedy Trolley, Mystery Mine, which is mixed reviews, Roscoe, which is mixed reviews. So there's not really any recognizable or well-reviewed games here from this developer. I wanted to see, by the way, though, what this developer... Did I look at this before and see... Like, the only other game this developer has made is Phantom Doctrine, which recently came out, so there is actually some relevancy. I could play this game and then I could play Phantom Doctrine, and or I could spotlight Hard West and then play Phantom Doctrine and see how much they've improved. And then Ancient Space is mixed reviews, real-time strategy game, so it's not something I'd really want to play. Moving on, we have Harvest Moon Light of Hope Special Edition. Now this is, if I'm recalling correctly, a Harvest Moon game made by nobody who made the original Harvest Moon series. It's simply owned, somebody owned the license to it, and the creator of Harvest Moon went on to make other games under a different name. This is in celebration of, this came out in 2017 in celebration of the 20th anniversary of Harvest Moon. Now the problem here is I played a game that was heavily inspired by Harvest Moon, and I kind of hated it. Farming is just not the life for me as far as playing video games. And in a bigger point, I just don't like games where you're doing a job. I don't know why that's the case, but it really is the case. This looks cutesy and kid-friendly. If I was looking to buy a game for kids, I might consider this. It's 74% positive here. Seems like there's a considerable amount of DLC, so you're gonna have to spend $30 on this game. We could look at the negative reviews. This is the game I played, Stardew Valley, and people love Stardew Valley. It has overwhelmingly positive reviews. 86,988 people have reviewed it. People love Stardew Valley, and for me to hate it, that really just comes down to a admittance that there are just some subjective personal opinion games that I don't that are just not for me. And when I try to look at Stardew Valley objectively, I see it's a game. I know people like it. I think it's a pretty good game. It's just not one I like to play. I think I may have my time in Porsche also on the follow list, but at best I feel like maybe I could do Slime Rancher, but maybe not. Let's see. Took me until about fall day 10 to finish the main storyline. Took me till second year summer to get married. Yeah, and I didn't even get past the first year in Stardew Valley. I was hoping Sherlock would be my option, but getting notes to level 5 seems to be uneven. That this game gave over 20 gifts and not a single note increase, even a half. If you actually follow the game the proper way you're playing, wow, this is a too long, didn't read. If you love the old Harvest Moons, do not get this. It will not satisfy you as a Harvest Moon fan. Let's see. Played this game without a game controller. That might be part of a problem. This game is a major disappointment, definitely not worth the cost at all, but just high in my opinion for what you get. The graphics are clunky and silly, the dialogue is boring. I found myself not motivated to go after any of the marriage candidates. And so yeah, Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon have this dating element to it. It's a running a farm and running your life simulator, which might be a problem. So I think this game is going to be removed from my wishlist. It's from Tablet Incorporated, who has not put anything else on Steam. It's been a relatively recent turn of events in the past couple of years that Japanese companies have started putting games on Steam and on PC, where previously a game like this very possibly would have only been put on something like the Nintendo Switch or the PSP or the Vita or the PS4 or DS. You can see in the level of graphics for this very possibly was designed to originally run on a Nintendo DS or something. And even now, as while Japanese companies are putting things on PC, they're also putting more games on cell phones, so you still end up with cell phone ports. Yeah, just for my own personal reason, because I tried Stardew Valley and I found out something about myself in playing that game, and sometimes that's a nice thing to learn when playing games. Farming games are not for me, at least not as they're depicted usually. Now if I was to type in the phrase Harvest Moon and hit enter, you'll notice that while Harvest Moon Light of Hope Special Edition lines up, you also have Stardew Valley come up by relevancy, and then Harvest Life, and I'm trying to see if maybe the other game, if I can find what the name of the other game would be, because I'm pretty sure there was a game from the developer of Harvest Moon. But yeah, I don't even see it on this list. So if there is another game from the developer of Harvest Moon, I don't know who it is. It may very well be that it is actually Stardew Valley. Let's see. Let's see. Trying to see in the description here if this says it's from the developer from Harvest Moon. I don't think it actually is. I believe that this developer yeah, I think one of those positive reviews would say that. If it was the case, I'm getting off on tangents certainly. And this developer hasn't done anything else since then, but I generally don't write off a developer until 4 years after the development, and in this instance in particular, I would say that that's not even a good point, because I'm fairly certain this game has been updated rather consistently. Like, he's trying to add multiplayer and then total features into it. Like, had I liked Stardew Valley, I should come back and cover it when it gets to a 2.0 version. It's at like 1.3. So yeah, he just added multiplayer. Need to move forward though. Man, I am not moving fast at all today. Next we have Harvester. This is a Night Dive Studios published full motion video point and click horror game. So this is an older game. Night Dive Studios is kind of known for getting older games that would have run on like Windows 95 and then republishing them. This Digi FX Interactive almost certainly is out of business. Harvester, as far as a game, is not one that I recognize, but you can see by its craziness that this very possibly would be a fun game to cover during Halloween month in the future, some Halloween month during the future. And of course I'm a sucker for point and click adventure, and I'm a little bit of a sucker for full motion video, so there's no reason that's getting removed. Next we have Has Been Heroes from Frozen Byte, which is, I believe, a developer I recognize the name of, but I'm not sure I really want to play this game. So it's basically a one-screen RPG fight section, and it seems like you go through the map into different encounters. Seems like you have 3 characters that can cast 2 spells, and maybe they eventually level up and they can cast more spells. Let's see. It's a lane-based roguelike game of strategy and action. So there's a slight difference between roguelite and roguelike, but a lot of people don't use the right phrase. So like, if it is actually roguelike, that means all progress is lost when you die, and you have to start over completely from the beginning, and you don't get any money and you don't get any XP. If it's a roguelite, you do get to keep something, whether it's money, XP. The game gets easier as you continue to play and die. This game is 78% positive and it has 197 reviews, but clearly it's not that big of a game. It was not hugely advertised when it came out. I'm trying to bend over backwards here and find a reason to remove this. Let's see, to make it short, it is pretty dull after a while and or unfair, however you want to name it. Let's see, it's a roguelike dungeon crawler with tons of customization. The thing is, you can make every playthrough unique with unique characters and unique items. There are plenty, but whatever you choose, there are some bosses which can't be defeated without specific builds. So F all the customization the game offers, it's worthless. Such a stupid problem. Good concept, shallow game, very little actual strategy. Learning and growth take place. And in not so many terms, I kind of was getting a similar feeling. The game felt light. Just a little light on content, so I think I can remove this one. Frozen Byte is the makers of Trine, and they've recently announced Trine 3, which is surprising since, well, they've recently announced Trine 3 when I believe they've recently announced Trine 4, which is surprising because Trine 3 did not succeed well at all with mixed reviews, although Trine 2 is overwhelmingly positive. I suspect this company will potentially go out of business or get acquired if Trine 4 fails, because they don't have a lot of money, and you definitely saw that in their release schedule, because this came out like August 2015, and then pretty quickly something else came out right after it, which this was May 2016, this was March 2017, this is December 2017. Well, maybe something didn't come out, maybe they just announced something really quickly. But yeah, I think Frozen Byte as a developer is probably one of the several games companies that might fail in 2019, assuming they make it that far. Yeah, but Has Been Heroes, that's all we were really looking at, and that'll go on the remove list too. We're not moving fast at all. Hasbro's Battleship is a 2018 game, so it only has 2 reviews. I would maybe want to cover this game, but I'll just put it on the follow list right now. The thing here, which is weird, is there was a Hasbro's Family Game Night series of games on the Xbox 360. I don't know what happened to those games. I suspect maybe some of them got ported to Hasbro's own personal website and not put on Steam. But since then, and throughout the time that those games that were kind of great happened, there's been a lot of terrible like Hasbro licensed games that have been made and released, and a lot of them feel like they're just surrounded in microtransactions and just bad experience. Okay, so I think I need to make a decision here with Hatoful Boyfriend. This is basically a joke game that's also a dating sim and a visual novel where you're playing as pigeons, dating pigeons. I don't know how it ended up this way, but I ended up getting a spin-off Hatoful Boyfriend game and trying to cover it for Christmas. Well, it was, I think, Hatoful Boyfriend Holiday Star. I didn't like it. I don't think in general I want to play a visual novel unless it has full voice acting, which this one doesn't, and has a really good story. And I'm still not 100% sure even at that point I would want to play a dating sim visual novel. They say the main game here is 1 hour to 9 hours. That doesn't seem like that's too much work. In fact, this might be the one thing that convinces me to keep this on the wish list. But in all reality, I should remove this. Like, this is not the visual novel. If I ever do cover visual novels, it's not the one to play. Also on the wish list we have the collector's edition DLC, which adds something. What does it actually add? There's not even really a description here. And these pictures are just from the original game, it seems. And then there's also the Holiday Star DLC, which unlocks what? Yeah, don't even know. So yeah, that puts you in a weird position. This really is not the visual novel that anybody should play. The weird thing here on visual novels is that if people are going to become part of the niche fan base that likes visual novels, you need to really like visual novels, not come in because you like a joke visual novel. And I'll list a few of them that are basically terrible entry ports for visual novels. First of all, you gotta remember 99% of all visual novels are going to be Japanese, so you gotta like Japanese games and the anime aesthetic first, otherwise it's just never gonna happen. This is odd. I did not realize that this was from the developer who's also making PC Building Simulator, which might be a good game if it comes out of early access and actually has PC parts that you can pick and use and have a realistic experience, but I don't think that's really what they're doing with it. And foul play. Did not realize this was the same developers. But back to what I was talking about. I'm gonna add this and make sure it's on my wish list. Although, yeah, because I don't think it is. If you're gonna play a game like Lady Killer in a Bind or Dream Daddy Dad Dating Simulator or Butterfly Soup, there's 3 overhyped visual novels, all not made by a Japanese company, all not made for a Japanese audience, all kind of joke games, although maybe Lady Killer in a Bind is not really a joke game. But they're just really bad entry points here. Well, it seems like in their update they have bundled and worked with Asus, so now it actually is going to have parts from at least one manufacturer. Ideally, more than just a game, because this really is, right now, last time I heard anybody talk about PC Building Simulator, it's a game where you get missions and you get jobs. The jobs get shipped to you, and well, yeah, they've got several partners now. That's great. If they're partnering with a significant number of PC part developers, you can actually build an actual PC you want to think about building in the real world for yourself. But yeah, you get jobs and you can kind of screw your customer over and do some shady things and maybe make some more money. And it looks like they're trying to be a little bit more educational on this, so I'm glad this is getting more progress on this, because originally it was all going to be fiction. There were going to be no actual branded parts. There was not going to be anything that felt like actually putting a computer together. Now, arguably, as somebody who's built several computers, quite a lot actually, you're still not really getting the feel of it. I can totally see somebody playing this game and then spending $1,000 on an actual gaming rig and then not ensuring that they are statically discharged and just like getting a little static charge built up and touching the motherboard and frying something. Or somebody not realizing that even in modern computers it's still probably not a good idea to plug things in or unplug things while the computer is plugged in and turned on, and that it's even in modern days where most devices probably would be okay with you hot swapping, as it's called, it's still a very good idea to shut down that computer, pull the power plug from the back of the computer, and then plug in a SATA hard drive, for example, or SSD, which is actually hot swappable. It's not worth it though, and it's not like the operating systems particularly handle that too well either. If you are going to have something that is hot swappable, you probably are going to do that through a hot swap bay and a drawer where the hard drive could be pulled out or pulled in. I could totally see somebody also just like spilling water on a PC, and those are things you're not going to run into on a simulator. You really need to do it in the real world. Also, I can see people electrocuting themselves or plugging that computer into a very bad power source that's miswired or sending out too much voltage. Of course, again, I'm getting off topic. Yeah, I had it for a boyfriend series though. That is not the visual novel series for me. I should not go down that path any further. Next we have Hatred, which maybe has some relevancy, maybe it doesn't. That's questionable. So, what do you do with a game that specifically knew it was going to be bad? And it's surprising it says I'm calling it bad when it's 77% positive. But it kind of knew it was going to be mediocre at best. And then perhaps had one of the best advertisement campaigns ever by literally saying this game is going to be a murder simulation. This game was, I think, released probably in a slightly quiet period in the United States where there weren't any mass shootings going on or being reported on. And so this came out where it wasn't super offensive and people didn't immediately turn on it completely. At least video gamers didn't turn on it. But the mainstream media and maybe some of the mainstream video game media, which are two different things, certainly locked onto this game and talked about it for quite a long time, which got people to buy it. So it sold itself through controversy. It's an adults only game, which it may very well be the first adults only game on Steam. I think it actually had an adults only rating and maybe came out on consoles, and so I don't think that's the whole thing. Do you play this and show that it really isn't much of a game? Do you show that Metacritic gave it a 43? Let's see. It's not a stress relieving shoot 'em up. My biggest complaints would be the controls are abysmal. Aiming, turning, moving, running, jumping. Yeah, for what I saw on this it wasn't very good either. Honestly, I don't think it's that great. It's an alright game. Being boring as hell narrative. I hate things, but obviously it's called Hatred, so I'm not surprised. What I'm surprised is a poor movement, limited controls, no clear objective to levels. Spent 40 minutes on the first level, then the game decided to give me a fatal error. At least I only paid $1 for it, so I'm not mad. I don't think this game really does have relevancy, because you can go back to earlier examples of this, like the Postal series, and that might have a little bit more relevancy. Or you could find some different games to play in general. Like, it's really the controversy around this that sells this game, and not the game itself. The game itself is not that good. And it's $5.99. This came out in 2015. I imagine this developer doesn't have much else to sell. They came out with Ancestors Legacy in 2018, and then IS Defense, which I imagine is Islamic State Defense, in 2016. So they kind of launched their developer name on controversy. They really didn't do anything with it though. I don't think I need to play this game, honestly. I really don't. And with YouTube and Twitch being more conservative, I wouldn't be surprised if Twitch somehow came out and said, well, you played this adults only game on your videos, so now your channel's deleted. And so I need to be kind of careful about that. There is also a point that this is just a top-down twin-stick shooter, and I just don't like top-down twin-stick shooters. So yeah, hatred can go. We can all do with a little less hatred in our lives. Next we have Haunted, which is a 2012 point-and-click game. Now, this game is sort of suffering from what I call dark screenshot syndrome. Like, it's really dark back here, it's pretty dark back here. This screenshot in particular, it's just like all blackness everywhere around on this screenshot. That's just a poorly chosen screenshot. Also, it's suffering from some crazy neon colors and what you would call low polygon 3D, or not really low polygon, but just older 3D animation. So it's not 100% polished all the time. But knowing its age, knowing it's 6 years old game, doesn't look terrible. It only has 33 reviews. So this might be a hidden gem, or it might only really deserve 33 reviews. Let's see if we can see some gameplay without having to spend 5 minutes to look at all the logos at the start of every single trailer. Seriously, that's not going to sell your game on Steam. So, in a comedy of terrors, the fate of the spirit world is in your hands as you embark in search for a long-lost sibling. Well, it looks like a game. It's a game I've never heard of. And it's a point-and-click adventure, it says, but it's more of a 3D point-and-click adventure instead of a 2D point-and-click adventure. This ghost effect is not great. I think you could have just put a ghostly glow around solid characters and it would have looked a lot better. So let's read the reviews and just make sure this isn't a game where the story ends on a cliffhanger. Apparently it's part of the Sinister Stories bundle, which I believe is horror point-and-click hidden object games. 6 hours to play. Let's see. Get those reviews loading. Let's see. 30 characters. Showing comic story. And nothing wants to load. It's okay, but aged quite a bit. This game tries very hard to build character, but it comes rather bland and awkward. There's nothing that caught me about the story. Soundtrack is generic, but annoying. But not annoying. Puzzles aren't too great either. Meh. Fine. That's not terrible. Negative review. Can't skip the cutscenes. Very old graphics, gameplay very glitchy. Not bad. So we're seeing some negative reviews, but the one thing that would have scared me away from this game is if it said it was unfinished. So if we look at this developer, the only other thing they have is the Sinister Stories bundle, which is a bundle from games that were made by other people, or maybe that people changed their names, change their company name. Most of these games are games that are on my wish list though. They're not the greatest point and click adventure games ever, but they're not bad. So yeah, I don't see a reason to do that. Also, I would definitely want a much better deal than $80 for 8 point and click adventure games. And honestly, $15 for such an old looking game is asking quite a lot. But I'll leave it on a wish list. I won't put it to the top though. Next we have a game called Haven Moon, which this is a Myst-like game. I can tell you by the look of it alone. Point and click adventure. Looks very pretty. Probably doesn't go for as long as you would think. There have been some Myst-like games or Myst clones that almost directly or nearly completely copy elements of Myst. That's not terrible in my opinion, as long as it's not just a straight up stealing of everything. And I'm definitely seeing in this instance a lot of things that look like new things. Now, to be fair, these could be assets flips, but what keeps it from being the flip part of an asset flip is when people spend the effort and the time to really think about where objects and assets go and really make a plan out of it. As we're looking at the video here, nothing seems randomly placed. Nothing seems just like uncaringly tossed onto the map. This looks very, very good. The world might be pretty small though. It seems like you're seeing the same area over and over again. $9.99, 4 to 5 hours. So yeah, it is a pretty short experience compared to a Myst experience, but I don't see any reason to take it off. In fact, I'm such a sucker for Myst games, I will put this one at the top of my list. It looks like something that I'd like to play. I'd much prefer to play Myst 3, which was recently added to Steam, and Myst 4 and Myst 5, and continue down a series of covering the actual Myst series. But I'm perfectly fine with doing a clone too. Moving on, we have a game that also might not have relevancy, but the thing here, and this is weird certainly, I'm gonna drink some water, and this would be a good time for you to pause the movie show and just pause this video and take a break. Yeah. Okay, the thing is, there's this YouTuber who at one time was for for a while at least, a video games journalist called Jim Sterling. You probably heard of him. He has made entire series of covering weird looking games on Steam and giving games that really never deserved any coverage a spotlight. Generally speaking, this comes down to him spotlighting bad games or bad game developers and causing trouble. Sometimes he's just spotlighting games that are stupid in the fact that they're selling themselves on sex. Yeti is one of the games that got that kind of coverage because it sells itself on sex. It describes itself as a hardcore old school Metroidvania mix with modern day third person shooting and platforming mechanics, also as well as a sexy character. There's a weirdness certainly in this asset that the developer used. The developer is clearly a weird person who really committed to his design here, because you're basically a robot head here with robot arms and maybe a robot chest plate with a human body on there, and see, maybe there's a human head in there, but it gets dangerously close to dehumanizing female body to the point of just being this giant butt. But what can you say? The guy likes big butts and he cannot lie. So he put this character in there when, in all realisticness, had there been anybody else making this game, somebody would have come in here, also large cleavage, somebody would have come in here and said, alright, that's a funny mod, that could be DLC, this could be a special outfit, you could even have this character, but you need to have a more outfit. Like, if this is gonna have mainstream appeal, you don't make a character like that. But for better or worse, this developer didn't have anybody come in and say that, so this is the game you get. A game that is rated 77% positive in the last 30 days, 84% positive over its lifetime. I think it really is a moderately good game. Now, here's my problem as a YouTuber. It's now tagged with sexual content and nudity that wouldn't, I don't think, have been there when this game came out. These games are, now that Steam has changed its censorship policy, these games have pretty much decided to sneakily just add things, add the nudity that they intended for it to have in the first place into the game. So yeah, you're just gonna be looking at her behind the whole game. I don't think I could probably cover this game, but I also kind of want to support it. You kind of just have to support the gall here of a game like this, particularly now that users have tagged it with sexual content and nudity. Like, I just don't know at what point that might happen and how much censorship might have to happen here. This looks like it's basically a Portal kind of game if instead of using portals you were using a gun and running and climbing. But still not a terrible game. Maybe also not worth $14.99. What is this? You asked for this. Let's see. Okay. This post may not be appropriate for all ages, so let's sneak back behind that. So, 6 gameplay sections, 160 rooms, no regeneration, use med kits, no checkpoints, use save stations and diskettes. All items are hidden, explore, limited inventory, manage. Challenging gameplay, you will fail a lot, no hand-holding, act on your own. This game won't tire to kill you, be persistent. Now, when you look at Steam charts, this game has only had an all-time peak of 322 players, but still pretty good active peak as of today. Average playtime is just shy of 3 hours, whereas to play the main game is 6 hours, and 20 is 20 hours for the extra. This is where it gets weird, certainly, though, about like Jim Sterling and other YouTubers like this. It really wasn't a game that should have gotten any popularity. In all honesty, this should have been a game that got on Steam Direct, paid its $100 to be on Steam Direct, and then saw basically no sales, and eventually lowered its price down to like a 99-cent game, and that was that. This game is from 2016. I suspect the developer that made this game would not use this developer name, or he would just make a sequel to Yeti. See, Steam's not particularly great about mods. So, while it does say here Steam Workshop support, that when I click here, that just brings up all games that have Steam Workshop support. There's not a great way from this page to find if there are any mods out there, which almost certainly are. And there is a problem, certainly. I'm not going to take this game off my wishlist, but there's a problem if this game was gifted to me. Like, I'm forever behind as far as covering games. Like, if I tried to record this series and halfway through I realized, like, oh no, there's just too much I have to edit here. This is not a series I could cover. That there's a lot of time commitment to that. Moving on though, like, I'm glad this game exists. I'm a little not happy though that this game got more coverage. In the same way, I'm not happy that Hatred got more coverage than it deserved, because there are some better sleeper games on Steam that probably deserved a little bit more coverage, and deserved it in part because they didn't go the cheap route of selling on controversy or selling on sex. But that being said, sex sells. A significant number of Japanese games are totally low effort games that sell on sex, and they sell very well, and they sell $100 collector's bundles, and at a certain point it boils down to, do you believe in pure capitalism, or do you believe in perhaps a patronage style in which artists are given grants to make their own art and don't have to worry about selling their games to the end user or the customer. Next we have this game called Headliner, where you control the media. I think this is a lot like Papers, Please as far as a game, like a Papers, Please game. It's $2.99. It's not super expensive. It's barely 2 hours of gameplay, so that I really would only have to play it for a short time. It's 73%. Of course, any game where you're playing a person who's censoring or changing how the news is, potentially could fall into a lot of political traps and have a political story that might be annoying to half of any audience. But I guess it's 73% positive, so I don't see any reason to remove it here. And this is the previous version, I suppose, of this newer game called Headliner Novi News. So that might be something worth thinking about. That being said, if we look at like this game, it's mixed reviews with 79 reviews. This game only has 8 reviews and it came out in 2016. This one is mostly positive, and this one is positive with 13 reviews. So the headliner series, I guess we'll keep it. Personally, I'm not sure I want to go down that well, though. I really don't know if I want to, even for 30 minutes, cover a game that's just going to be around such political thoughts and stories and you know, just going on rants. That's pretty much what I don't want to do, is I don't want to go on a rant. Let's see. Why is this other game though? It's probably on my follow list, would be my guess, because it wasn't on my wish list. And we are just, I've said it before, but we're not making a lot of progress. Next we have Healer's Quest. This is 90% positive with 64 reviews. It's relatively new, so I don't think this needs to be on the follow list. I'm okay with leaving this game on the wish list because I think I want to check it out. But I think there's a clone of this game that's also on my wish list that I probably need to remove. My wish list has become so big and unmanaged, clearly, that it's pretty easy to get clones of games. Basically, this game is you play as a healer, you're healing all the other component characters in an RPG, and so your only job is to keep everybody else alive who's doing the attacks. So let's see if we got a time on how long the game is. There is a potential here for a game that is too long for its own good, but it's also trying to be a little comedic, so I think there's a little bit more story to it. Yeah, and that high positive rating, even with a relatively low number of reviews, is good enough for me to keep Healer's Quest on my wish list. Although, question now really boils down to, should I put it at the top of the wish list? To be fair, I don't 100% love this animation style. It does seem kind of unique, but it also feels very fuzzy, like intentionally fuzzy. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put Healer's Quest at the top of the wish list now. Next we have Heart's Medicine, Hospital Heat. These are, which I probably shouldn't call them this, but little girl games. I don't know why they sell. Probably should take them off the wish list. The idea of running a hospital in these little games is probably not, like, they are from the same idea of like Fast Food Dash. Yeah, I think is the name of that game. Yeah, I really don't think I should cover these. And see, this game is $12.99, but you can get the 4-in-1 bundle, which includes Hospital Heat and Time to Heal, and the 2 soundtracks. Or you can buy 20-in-1 original games. Yes, this is from like the Delicious series of games, where it's Diner Dash, I think. It's games where you're playing, doing a job, and like I said earlier, games where you do a job is not something that really interests me. And honestly, I'm not sure if these are actually kid-friendly games or they're just trying to be sold to kids. Maybe they don't really sell. Like, I personally haven't seen a kid ever actually play any of these games. And I don't think this is targeting or would really attract a bored housewives demographic. And then there is the whole problem of things that look like this that weren't age appropriate being put on YouTube, videos like this, and so I probably should avoid it for that reason alone. Same way, I'll remove Heart's Medicine, Time to Heal. I do want to play a doctor's game though. Like, don't get me wrong, the idea of playing as a doctor is an interesting idea, and that's probably why I had this this idea of, let's find a game where you play as a doctor and you're asked to do certain procedures, and each procedure is kind of the mini game. There's a Japanese series of games that are totally built around that, but I don't think they ever came to PC. We can just look at Gamehouse and see, like, it's all very much feels targeted to little girls. Every single game they release, which is not a bad thing, until it hits a point where you determine whether or not these games are being manipulative or trying to sell a bad quality product. I'm not 100% sure they are bad quality products. Most of these are rated very positively. I just don't know if they're the games for me. I'm pretty sure they aren't. And they certainly aren't flooding Steam with games like a lot of other developers. This is a reasonable collection of different games going through a series. It's not terrible. Again, this game is rated very positively. Yeah, it's just not for me. It's not the kind of game I'd want to play. Not the kind of game I think I should criticize. Moving on, we have Heart and Slash, which again is a question that question on its relevancy. It's a hack and slash action adventure game. With this robot, you defeat robots, you get body parts. The body parts change your attacks and can improve your armor and things like that, I'm pretty sure. It's kind of a simplistic game, but it's 82% positive. I remember when it came out in 2016, it didn't get a lot of coverage, but it got a small amount. 69 on OpenCritic. And then if we look at the developer, they haven't made anything since. And the publisher, what else have they published? Well, Anima Gate of Memories is the game I recognize the name from. I think it's a visual novel. But the rest of these games I don't even recognize, so they don't look inherently terrible. I just don't recognize it. So I'll leave Heart and Slash where it is. But in all actuality, if I was looking for a hack and slash game, I probably would have better choices. And as I cover more hack and slash games, I think my my level of quality requirements to stay on my wish list will go up. And a game like this very well may not make the cut. Yeah, Anima Gate of Memories is not a visual novel, it's an anime JRPG. Okay. Interesting. I don't think that's on my wish list either, so I'll check that out. Next we have Heart Z Co-op Puzzles. If this actually is co-op, then I think I can remove it immediately. Can be played solo or up to 3 players locally. Every single mechanism and level has been designed to perfectly adjust to the number of players. An awesome single player experience or a wicked multiplayer one. That's important to know. However, notice this game only has 5 user reviews. So it could be a hidden gem, or it could totally not deserve to be played. It looks like it's a puzzle platformer style game. It looks like it definitely has polish here. This isn't a low effort game. $9.99. Let's scroll down and see what kind of reviews we have. Not quite a good co-op game. It ends up being annoying and frustrating. That wouldn't be a problem for me because I'm going to play it solo anyways. There's only 14 reviews. And it looks like that only one of them is negative. So you're in a weird position here where this game does not meet my threshold of 25 reviews, but that's not a reason for it to leave the wishlist alone. It just means that I should have put it on the follow list. Unfortunately, this came out in 2016, so if it was on the follow list, all that would happen is at the end of next year, I'd look at it and say, put it back on the wish list. So I might as well leave it on the wish list as it is. This is from a developer who made one other game that is 68% positive, so it's not doing a great job, and it's from a publisher who's published nothing else. So it's not in good company. But all of that being said, I think I'm willing to leave this on the wish list, and maybe I'll never actually buy it at $10. So many of these games are $10 and really should be closer to 99 cents. Next we have a game called Heat Signature, and you break into spaceships, make terrible mistakes, and think of clever ways out of them. Let's see. It's from the developer of a game called Gunpoint, which that's probably why this is on the wish list, is because I just added it because I was looking at all the games from this developer. I'm constantly adding things as I'm trying to clean up the wish list and remove things. This looks like a top-down shooter. I'm not a big fan of top-down shooters. This game is also excluded from Steam's family sharing service. Most people don't even know that exists. I don't think I have to go any further. Even with an extremely high review rate, it's just another style of game that is not for me. Like, I think I could probably play 5 top-down shooters in my life, and they will need to be the top 5 most recognizable ones, things like Smash TV. Next we have a visual novel called Heaven Will Be Mine. Female protagonist, indie sci-fi. It's rated positively. I'm still kind of paralyzed with decision making as far as visual novels, whether or not I want to cover any of them at all. Let's see. This looks more like it's a texting simulator than just a straight up visual novel. Let's see, 97% positive. It's only in English, so it's a Western game. From the creators of We Know the Devil, which is probably also a visual novel. Let's see. I think this one is fine to stay until I decide how many. The same is true for RPGs, but at some point here I'm going to have to sort my wish list, or figure out a way to sort my wish list and look at all the visual novels I have and decide which ones I want to cover, which ones I don't, what are the best, what are the worst. This developer, this publisher hasn't made anything else, but then again, this game is also brand new. And I've not been following any kind of rule that says a brand new game that's rated very positively leaves the wish list and goes to the follow list. suppose it is possible that there would be a game that came out and it was rated very positively by over 25 people, and then all of a sudden a year later people started downvoting it. I'm not sure where that came from. Honestly, this might be a very good one to play because it doesn't feel like it's a ton of text. In any game with a lot of text in it without voice acting, I'm just gonna have to just read it all out loud or sit in silence, and then that's not a very good experience in general. So Heaven Will Be Mine was a good one. Side note, one of the reviews seemed to indicate that this was a gay visual novel. That doesn't really affect my decision much at all. Other than I generally like to try to keep a balance there. Something close to 50-50, or like one female and female gay story, one male and male gay visual novel, and then one male female heterosexual visual novel. Keep it about 33%. Next we have Heaven's Hope Special Edition, which is a point and click adventure. It's 81% positive. It's not a ton of reviews, but it looks good. Came out in 2016. I'm still very much a sucker for point and click adventure games, so a lot of these are staying on the wish list. Again, I probably should do some filtering there. And how many of these I actually come around to and playing, who knows. This developer doesn't seem like they've done anything different. It is an interesting question as we're looking at that video. It's just like, how much animation should you put into a modern point and click adventure game? It certainly doesn't have to be a ton, but if you've got an animator on staff and they've got nothing better to do, you might just have them make more cutscenes to keep them employed. Of course, that's no way that's not how video game development is usually run. Next we have Heaven's Vault. This is a game that isn't out yet. It's been announced. It's an interesting idea, although I think the phrase Heaven's Vault sounds too much like a cult that existed several years ago in the United States called Heaven's Gate. This game is, as has been described so far, it's still in development, pre-production possibly. It's this thing where you go around and you find these symbols and you have to determine what the symbols stand for, and as you play this adventure you eventually learn the entirety of this alien language that you're trying to discover as you're going from planet to planet. It's an interesting concept. It looks interesting, but it also could be vaporware, in the sense that it could just never come to a finished product. And generally speaking, I'm trying not to wish list or even follow games that don't have release dates. I don't want to get on hype trains for games that won't come out for many years. This could be a 2020 game, this could be a 2021, this could be much later than that. Let's see, next we have Heavy Weapon Deluxe. This is a PopCap game, and that's probably the reason it's on the wish list. It probably shouldn't be on the wish list though, in all honesty. Yeah, it doesn't look amazingly good. And I don't feel like I really need to cover every single PopCap game and just buy the bundle. So this one can leave the wish list. If somebody came back and said, oh, this game is amazingly good, I'll add it back to the wish list. Like, that's really where the best recommendation I can get is from my fans, is somebody saying in the comments, this game actually is worth playing, check this out. That's going to put games at the top of the wish list. That's going to highly motivate me to purchase games. Or if people gift me the games, that's even better motivation to play them and cover them. Next we have Hell Warders, which is early access, and because it's early access and it's 2017, I can just put it on the follow list. I don't recognize this game, so it came out, I put it on the wish list, and I forgot about it in the course of slightly over a year. It's an action RPG tower defense. Well, you said the one phrase that will convince me actually to remove it completely. Tower defense. Like, there's way too many tower defense games. And none of them are really good. It says single player, but I'm questioning how much of a single player experience it really is. Yeah, I think I want to just remove this. I think I'm willing to miss this game. 4-player co-op. Action tower defense meets hero tower defense. Not seeing anything here that really implies. Look at this, an all-time peak of 18 people. Yeah, we can get rid of Hell Warders. This is not going to come out and be the next Overwatch or Fortnite. Next we have Hellblade Suna's Sacrifice. Or I was always mispronouncing it Susuna's Sacrifice, but it's Suna, S-E-N-U-A. Very well received, both I think by actual players and critically received game from Ninja Theory. I want to cover it. Definitely I'm going to put it at the top of my wish list. Its only real problem was the length. Made it a little bit hard to justify the $30 that they want, because it's 7 to 9 hours of gameplay, and the gameplay actually isn't amazingly good either. It's all really about the graphics, and the graphics look really good in the story. Also, the story is about a person who's schizophrenic, so if you have mental problems yourself, it might trigger you, to use a phrase I don't use very often. So yeah, there's a lot of different reasons why this game would not have been as popular as it was, but it still was incredibly popular. And I think it's 100% just the way it looks. A lot of polish on it. But it was from Ninja Theory, and if we look at what Ninja Theory has developed, well, they're only talking about these two games. They must have developed their games under other names. It's from the makers of Heavenly Sword, which was a PlayStation exclusive. I really would like that game to come to PC. Heavenly Sword would be a much better version of Hellblade Suna's Sacrifice as far as a game, but it would be slightly not as pretty, but not by much, because it's slightly older. Enslaved Odyssey to the West is a alright game, but the story is kind of generic, and it seemed like it was just a little unpolished. And then DMC Devil May Cry, which was, I think, the reboot of DMC Devil May Cry, and I like that game pretty well. So I've covered 2 out of 3 of these games for my channel. There's a lot of good reason to want to continue to play this. This Suna's scholarship is a weird one, though. They're giving scholarships out instead of donating money to mental health, which doesn't make a lot of sense since the themes of the game is mental health. I would think you'd want to do both. Oh, and it apparently has some nudity in it too. There literally is nothing bad to say about this game, though. Interesting that the reference game is a horror point-and-click adventure game called The Cat Lady that I've covered, and Stitched. I don't think I've ever. I guess that would make sense though. Sunu's Sacrifice is about a mentally disturbed lady. The Cat Lady is about a mentally disturbed lady. So maybe Steam has it right on the nose. There. So when I open these other recommended games, I don't recognize a lot of these. And I don't know if that means something or if it just means these are small games. Spec Ops The Line doesn't make a lot of sense as far as a recommendation though. Yeah. Let's try to build some momentum and continue forward. Stitched is a RPG maker horror puzzle game, according to this. Yeah, I don't think I want to play an RPG maker game, even if it is a horror puzzle game on top of that. Even if this was like really short. But you know what, I'm gonna give it some more time and look at it later. Friend Brow is a point-and-click psychological horror game, so that makes sense. Marginal Act is a psychological horror drama. This one doesn't look that good though, so yeah, I'm gonna look at that more. I'm so petrified right now, I can't even make a decision about whether to add or remove things. Caligo, another walking simulator horror game of some sort. Looks interesting. And then The Path is a walking simulator horror game. Again, probably not worth playing, but it is rated positively. So I found like 4 or 5 games here. Alright, here's an atmospheric full motion video game that is mixed reviews from 2018. So I think this one could probably go down to just a follow. I believe this says it's full motion video, but it may just be based on actual real world pictures, which is not full motion video, it's just photography. Let's see, moving on. Those Who Remain is a new game that I can put on the follow list. Not making progress at all. Mechanism is an adventure indie puzzle game. And see, while I imagine, I'm gonna just add this one to the wish list. This actually looks interesting. While I imagine for the most part these videos are kind of useless and they're just me shouting into the wind while I'm cleaning up the wish list and doing work, I would kind of hope that somebody somewhere at some time sees some of these games that I'm looking at, or just sees a game that is recommended, or sees a developer and says, hey, I want to check out that. And ideally that's for the entirety of my channel too. I don't want I don't want to push people into playing more Fortnite. There's nothing wrong with Fortnite, but I'd like people to expand their horizons and try some different things and find some other games. There's a lot of games out there just on Steam alone, so it there's a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to show off. Next we have a game called Hellbound that is coming out in 2018. This could be anything. This really is just screenshots of this one character. And it's from a developer that I don't recognize. So I think maybe I'll put this on the follow list, but maybe I'll just take it off completely. It's from a developer who's made a Doorways series that I've never heard of. So then the question would be, what is the Doorways series really about? It's a mixed reviewed game. Doorways Prelude is mixed reviewed. This is mixed reviewed. This one's very positive. So the one from 2016 is positive, but the other two are mixed reviewed. So it took them 3 tries to make a game that people wanted to play. Lovecraftian. So it's a Lovecraftian game. Alright, well, I guess then I will put Hellbound on the follow list and we'll see what happens there. Although, it is very possible that by, I don't know, I guess the follow list will just constantly have games that aren't released on it listed, because there's no way to really get that removed, because I'll never know at what point I added something that has no release date to the wish list. Actually, well, I mean the follow list. Actually, maybe I could sort the follow list by the date added and remove anything that still doesn't have an announcement date a year later. That would be ideally what I would want to do. Next we have a game called Helldivers. I'm suspecting that this is not my style of game. Online co-op twin stick shooter. It says it's single player. It has some single player element, but man, do a lot of these games not feel like it. 9 to 90 hours, that's a pretty expansive difference there. It says 100 plus hours. Seems like some people are still playing Helldivers though. It's far from its all-time peak, but still seems like there's a little bit there. And this is it from the PlayStation Mobile Incorporated the publisher, which I assume is different than Sony Interactive Entertainment or Sony Entertainment Interactive. The only other games this developer, PlayStation Mobile, has published is Guns Up, which is mixed, and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which is mixed. So yeah, I'm gonna remove Helldivers. It just does not look like, even though I didn't really watch any video of the gameplay, it did not look like anything that was really interesting. Alright, we'll sit here for a second and look at the gameplay, and yeah, color me not impressed. Meanwhile, I'm gonna drink some water, so if you want to pause the video or not, now would be a good time to take a break. Yeah, that's enough of that. I don't see anything here in this game. We have Hello Kitty and Sanrio Friends Race. Now, Hello Kitty is a big name, certainly. But this game is mixed reviewed. I would like something like this, but it really would just probably be coming down to search engine optimization. Let's see. So here's a comparison to Mario Kart in this long review. Let's see, it's a really weird review. Here we go. Waste of money, lost 19.99 euros on this game. The controls are awful. I need my money back. Why would you put a big price on an awful game like that? This guy could get his refund pretty easily too. Automatic refund to less than 2 hours. It was developed and released in 2015. Brokenish and abandoned by the developer. And see, that kind of just sucks, because I do want a Hello Kitty game if it's good, because that would be good search engine optimization, but I'm not going to play a bad game just to potentially get some kids on YouTube to click on a link. I'm not even sure if kids are really into Hello Kitty, or if it's maybe just Japanese kids who wouldn't click on the link anyways because it's not in English, it's not in Japanese. You can see this developer has not developed anything else. We could search to see if there's any other like Hello Kitty products, and we see nothing. We could search Sanrio. Nope. Nothing there. Games like this almost certainly would be on cell phones anyways. This doesn't look like a game that really would struggle too much if you tried to port it to a cell phone version. Also, a Diddy Kong Racing clone or a Mario Kart clone is something I would like to play, but I'm not going to play a bad one. So, Hello Kitty and Sanrio Friends Racing. Sometimes I try to play kids games too. Like, for as much of these wishlist videos where I run into the lewd anime girl sex games, you know, sometimes I try to keep it a little bit balanced, and in an earlier time slot do something that is kid friendly, but there really isn't a lot of early kids friendly games on PC or just out there in general. Everything wants to be rated M or teen plus. Anything that is E or EC for early childhood very rarely comes to PC, with maybe the exception of the Lego games, which don't play well on PC. Next we have Help the Game, a project that brings together top developers, studios, and game industry superstars, all to raise money for children of war. This is a bundle of games that seem to all be only accessible through this bundle, and honestly they probably are mostly Game Jam games. And while I might want to help Children of War, which I believe is a charity that helps children displaced due to war, I would probably just prefer to get a tax deductible donation directly to it instead of giving money to some company through Steam that they can then write off as a tax donation, but I can't. And none of those games look good at all, which is another point. There have been these Game Jam style games and Game Jams a lot that are designed around the idea of creating something pretty simplistic. Like Emily Displaced looks like it would be the only game there that slightly interests me, or Nevermind might be slightly fun, but all of these are probably super short experiences, very unpolished things. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know if I'd want to spend $15 on maybe 2 or 3 games that honestly don't even really have any relevancy. There's a level of virtue signaling, as it's called here, where buy our games because we're doing a good thing. Yeah, War Child supports and protects children lives who have been disrupted by war and conflict in places like Afghanistan, Iraq, Jordan, Uganda, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Central African Republic. But there's a certain level of just sleaziness to this too. Like, if you want to help, just donate the money directly. Don't go through a company. Don't fall for these scams. There's been stories of there was a developer who died and they were selling DLC. A video game company was selling DLC to help that developer's family who died, and they were taking a cut of the profits from the DLC. It's like just total BS. Speaking of something that might be total BS, the next game is called Helping Hand. This needs to be on the follow list. Basically, it's a kind of joke game where you're just this hand, and I think you just control the fingers, whether they are retracted one way or the other, and you're in different scenarios and you have to make different symbols. Like, it probably is a joke game. Let's just look at this developer and see if they made anything else. $8.99 is probably way too much for this. It's probably a $1.99 at most for Helping Hand, but I'll put it on the follow list. We'll see what people review it in a year. Looks like a slightly funny idea, at least, or concept, and there's a little bit of polish in the animation. It's not total terrible animation. Alright, moving on. We have HEPH, which has 6 reviews. It says it's an action adventure gore survival horror game. So this might be an asset flip game. I'm seeing definitely a lot of darkness around. The only one who has to deal with the worst situation happens in the space destination. Gather materials and craft items, shoot, sneak around, and use your strategy to survive. So it's one of these crafting games, but in space. You don't run into that too often. Doesn't inherently look terrible as far as the gun crafting, but maybe rather repetitive in the level design and slightly boring in the enemies design. And see, this came out January 24th, 2017, and you would have thought more people would have played it and reviewed it at this point. 24 achievements. Well, what's the all-time peak? 3 people have played this game at the same time. Average play time is 43 minutes. It's probably not really a game. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't even launch. Come on, reviews load. See, is there anything else we can get from this information? Let's see, I'm not sure why this game has a 100% review. Let's see, I love games like System Shock, Dead Space, and others that have a special place in my heart. When I saw HEPH appear on Steam Carousel, which is not what it's called anymore, I was excited. Alright, let's keep on moving. The ship is lackluster, poor conveyance. Everyone will get stuck in the first room for the first 15 or 20 minutes. You'll spend about 15 minutes fiddling with the menu system, just trying to make sense of it. There were things happening on the ship, and so little of it was clear what was supposed to happen. I saw a panel explode, and I mean pretty bad flame-proof spawned out of it. Then I repaired it. Why? I controlled the turret at one point and blew up 2 hovering ships. I'm not sure what this did. None of it really made any sense. I had clarity, UI glitching, and this just goes on and on and on. Let's see. So 0 out of 10 gameplay, 3 out of 10 sound, 5 out of 10 performance. Do not buy it, it's not worth it. The game is in early access and greatly exceeded this in quality. There are games in early access that greatly exceed this in quality. It's worth $5 top. So this is a great example of, I think, what you can do with just a few screenshots and some asset flips, I imagine, and make your game look a lot better than it actually is. And it's getting harder and harder to develop the critical eye that's necessary to say, okay, this game is good, that game is bad. This developer hasn't made anything else. He's selling this game for $10, but it's getting removed from my wish list. Let's see. Next we have Her Majesty Spiffing. I wish I remembered what that meant. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, this came out in 2016. It's 76% positive. It looks pretty well animated for a point-and-click adventure game, making fun of the British Queen. I don't see any reason to remove it from the wish list. Yeah, it's the only game from this developer, so if I was a UK citizen, or yeah, a UK citizen, perhaps I might find something slightly offensive about this game if I were to play it, but I'm not, so I don't. So that stays on the wish list. I don't think anybody would really find it offensive either. Anyways, let's see. We have Herald, an interactive period drama from 2017. 98% positive from an alternate history point-and-click game. Let's see. Really don't want to watch all these videos, but yeah, this looks good. And very positive. Again, this is book 1 and 2, so it's possible that, yes, here we go. Book 3 and 4 are in development, so for that point, I'll put it on the follow list, because I don't want to buy a point-and-click adventure game that has not finished its story, and particularly is doing episodic releases. Moving on, we have Heretic, Shadow of the Serpent Riders. This is from Idit Software. Now, the reason why I'd want the Heretic series, and I imagine there's going to be several of these here. Let's see, with this package information. Yeah, Heretic, Shadow of the Serpent Riders, Hexen, and Hexen. These are old school 3D first-person shooter style games. Doom clones, basically, and that there was a lot of them, and there's some historical relevance here. Definitely. I probably wouldn't play this game for more than 5 minutes, to be fair, but this is really one of those games where I kind of want to own it, so if I wanted to get a ROM and play it on an emulator somewhere else, I would feel like I'd supported the video game industry too. So that'll stay on the wish list. There will potentially be a time where it would be very helpful for people to gift me games that they know I'm not going to cover, but honestly, that's such a personal decision at the time. I'd have to think about it again, that it would be easier just to support me through Patreon or send me a gift card and let me make the decision when there's a big summer sale or winter sale. As it seems now, they're doing every year a Halloween, fall, and Christmas winter sale. Christmas/winter sale. So there's like 3 different Steam sales happening over the course of about 3 months. Next we have a game called Hero Go. This is a snake game, I believe. There's this idea that was released, I think maybe by this game, but maybe not, where they took the concept of Snake, where you're just going around and picking up collectibles and the snake tail is getting longer and longer, and instead they introduced some RPG elements to it where you're picking up heroes, and each hero has different types of attacks that attack enemies, and as you collect gold and things, you upgrade the heroes. So it is a more complicated, modern style of game compared to Snake, which is a very, very old game. I actually don't think that this is the original developer of this game, but I would put this to the follow list just because it's a new game, and if people come back and say it has microtransactions in it, it's $1.99. That's if people came back and say it's great and it doesn't have microtransactions, I'll cover it for a short amount of time. But if people come back and review it and say it actually plays pretty poorly, there's at least one other game already on the wish list that's similar to this. And when we look at this developer, they have not developed anything else. The other game that's on the wish list or the follow list is military people walking around a military base. I imagine why this concept was originally invented is because cell phone screens really could not handle larger maps very well, and so it needed a little bit more complexity to it. At least in part. Next we have Hero U Rogue to Redemption, which is a story-rich Choices Matter adventure RPG 2018. It's very positive over its lifetime, and it looks like it's got some different styles of gameplay. So I was afraid it was going to be like a visual novel or interactive story. It's really, really expensive though. Really, really expensive for this game. $35. But price in itself is not going to knock something off my wish list. It'll just mean I never actually buy it. Or maybe at some point I'll have covered and bought every other game, and then I'll go, oh, the good old days, I'll spend $35 on this game because I have nothing else to buy. Also, this developer has made nothing else. It'll stay on the wish list. Next we have Heaven, H-E-V-N, which is a first-person sci-fi adventure set in an isolated planetoid. I'm not sure if this is just a walking simulator. It's suffering from dark screenshot syndrome very badly. Let's look at the reviews and see. This might have been a game I added to the wish list and then took it off. Can't recommend it at the moment. When it's finished, it'll be okay. Basically, you're paying to test the game. Wait until the game has been updated, as mentioned in other threads. Let's see. Well, I'm gonna... Yeah, why am I even considering this one? This one's came out just a few months ago, so... Just about a month ago, so... as of this recording. I should just be putting this on the follow list, and we'll check back in a year and see if Heaven is good or not. That's why the follow list needs to exist, is all these new games may have potential, but nobody's going to look at them or review them until several months afterwards. I imagine sales happen. Like, maybe if I came back after January, half of the games on the follow list would have reviews to help improve my decisions. Hexen is same thing, just Doom clones. Just kind of want to own them all of the ones, at least by id Software. I don't think I need to have a massive collection of these types of games. And then Hexen Beyond Heretic. There definitely were games that were on sale, and I don't even know if there were actually game shops as much as there were bookstores and like superstores and market stores that sold video games. And I definitely remember seeing games that had covers like this, just out and at eye level for little kids, because I would have been a pretty little kid when this came out originally. Preteen, teenager, young teen at best. And yeah, the shopkeepers didn't care or didn't know, and there definitely were concerned parents who would see something like that and say it was devil worship too. So some of these games, to get back to Hatred, which we covered a long time ago, also sold very much on controversy. So it is somewhat a time-honored tradition to sell things on controversy, well before video games came along. But it's something to consider to not do these days, and better inform and set expectations on your with the customers. There are better ways. Hexen Death Kings of the Dark Citadel. Yeah, like all these games will just stay on the wish list. Next we have Hex Logic, which is what I generally would describe as a single screen Unity game. It's not, that doesn't inherently mean it's bad, but it does point to a level of lack of ability to design games. This puzzle looks interesting. I don't understand it at first glance, so I'd be willing to try something like this as far as a puzzle game goes. In a lot of ways, this feels like it's not really that difficult of a puzzle game, and apparently there's at least 79 levels. This one is rated 97% positive with 39 reviews. I think that's enough to leave it where it is on the wish list. Let's see if we could get the Sudoku like gameplay. Over 90 levels, all-time peak of 6 people playing it so far. And see, I imagine it's sort of similar to a different game that I think is developed by the developer of this game, Knights, that I recently covered. So yeah, this will stay on the wish list. Moving on, we have Hidden Dragon Legend, 2D action game. I suppose this one is easy enough to just put on the follow list right now. This came out earlier this year. Let's see. So it might be good, it might be bad. It really just needs to... I'm gonna give it another year to see if more people play it and what kind of response it gets. And I'm just getting to the HIs, so it's possible that there aren't a lot more games left, but I suspect that we've actually not made a lot of progress. I know H's were not, it wasn't the longest of games that started with H. Next we have Hidden Folk, which is basically, I think you play Where's Wally, Where's Waldo with the game, sorta, is some of it. Although perhaps it's more of a different type of puzzle game than that. I thought it was something different, but it seems like it's more of a puzzle game. Alright. Well, that definitely looks interesting. And I believe this developer, no, I guess he didn't make a different game called Plug and Play that looks a lot like this. Well, it's overwhelmingly positive. There's no reason to remove Hidden Folks. There probably is a great reason though to remove Hidden Object Bundle 6 and 1. So these are particularly old hidden object games, not widescreen. It's rated very positively, and it's $11.99. And here's a hidden object game bundle of bundles where you could buy the 5-in-1, 4-in-1, 6-in-1, and another 6-in-1. And they really are trying to get you with these hidden object games. But I guess you kind of have to sell them for something. And $11.99 for 6 of them might be alright, assuming that they're not super short. But I am definitely going to have to make a decision about whether I want to cover any more hidden object games. I tried to cover some, and I don't know if I got much of a response back for it, and I'm not sure I'm particularly interested in them. Let's see, Flash Player for Internet Explorer. Do not use on multiple Windows 10. Multiple scenes do not render properly. I do not know if there's a fix. As another negative review. If you can get this at a deep discount, it won't feel like a ripoff. I got it cheap, thanks. That said, I don't particularly enjoy the majority of this bundle. So, yeah, and that's really where all bundling comes from. Is if you're buying a bundle, you're paying less for less. Generally, you're not getting the best of the best of the possible games, and I think that's really where this boils down to. Is the idea here would be, I should, if I'm gonna play hidden object games, I should play very specific hidden object games, probably games that are in a series of themselves that stand above all the rest, not a collection of hidden object games that are so bad that they don't even sell themselves individually. So I'm removing that from the wish list. But in comparison, a hidden object adventure around the world in 80 days is rated mostly positive. So I don't see a real reason to remove this from the wish list. Also, it's $2.99, which is a lot better. And if I was going to buy a bundle, I'd prefer the bundle be through Steam, not through its own launcher. Moving on, and I'll bundle 4-in-1 is the same idea. This can be removed. It does also kind of point something out that even in the previous game, this is described as hidden object something in the name, and this one is in also Japanese or Chinese description. Moving on again, we have Hidden Paws, which is a game where you play, I think, as a cat. This could be an asset flip, or this could be a game. It says it's a hidden object game. I don't know how that would be the case. Show me actual gameplay, please. Oh, I bet what you do is you in a 3D environment, you're finding cats and other objects. Okay, that's cool. I've always wanted to see how people would handle wandering around in an open world 3D environment. And that's what this is a low polygon 3D environment thing. $2.99 is not a bad idea. I almost want to put this at the top of my wish list too. So I'm gonna do it. Just being possibly a little too generous, but I'd like to try this game. I don't think that there's a lot of other games similar to this though. I don't think Under the Leaves is a similar game. And I doubt Lumino City is the same game. The Room is definitely not the same game. There's a game where you play as a drone. Doesn't look that interesting. Just adding more games to look at instead of taking. I want the 3D version of this. They remade it and you didn't get the... You had to buy it a second time basically because they made a 3D version of it, which might be a fair deal, but maybe not. Let's see. Journey in the forest and jungle depths. Find chestnuts for the pig, caterpillar, crocodile. So this looks like a pretty simplistic game with animals, but it doesn't look terrible either. I'll put that on the wish list, but probably take it off. Lumino City, on the other hand, is a point-and-click adventure game. It probably is already on the wish list, but I'll double check. Return is a very positive free game. It looks like a kind of Game Boy platforming, jumping downward game. Yeah, this doesn't look that good. People don't use the phrase donationware very often these days, so you can donate 99 cents. Yeah, I don't see a reason why I'd want to add this to the wish list. Hidden on the Trail of Ancients, in comparison, is a horror pick point and click, although point and click games also often are hidden object games. 64%. This one is just too low. This one needs to be removed from the wish list. We're losing some games at least. Not a lot. We're not removing a lot of them, but at least some of them. Next we have High Noon Revolver, 2D action shooter game. It's 11 reviews, but at 81% positive. Looking at it, watching the video here, I don't think it should stay on the list. Like, I could go down and read the reviews, certainly, but I think what's gonna be said is that this game is probably pretty short and the controls are slightly clunky, and that you get into probably scenarios where you have to take damage and it's too hard, if I was to guess. And I don't think this game has any relevancy. think it's from a developer who's developed anything else that I recognize. Nope. I don't think this publisher has published anything else I recognize. No. So that's another game that can be removed. Let's move on. Next we have High Score Processing Unit, which is a game of some sort. Like I always forget what the game that these games are cloning is called. Tempest, I believe, is the name of it. Yeah. I'm gonna put this on the fall units just because I don't have to I don't want to have to think about it, but almost certainly this game is not making it to the wish list. Moving on. Next we have Highway Blossoms, tagged visual novel, female protagonist, anime nudity, more girl on girl action. Adult only DLC released. See, the adult patch is all grown up now, and you can, and it is full-fledged Steam DLC, and it's free. So this is where I think Steam, maybe you should go the other direction, but it's okay by me if it stays this way, where a lot of these games are censored by default and then you have to install the adult only patch. But I would also be cool if they started uncensored and then there was just a safe for family patch that censored them later. Ideally, I'd like the censorship to be opt-in, not opt-out. But yeah, this is now rated M for mature, so if I was to get this game, it's simply because I want to support Alien Works and Sekai Project, and support games that people like. This is an English, Chinese, Russian game, so maybe it's not that great, but you can see that the number of reviews seem to disagree with that quite a bit. Not every single Chinese or Russian game is bad, it's just that there tends to be a lot of them, and I think in general they tend to not just have the greatest understanding of where the level of video game quality is. And it also has full audio English, so that sounds like a interesting game. Unfortunately, even in the censored format, I probably couldn't cover it. 6 to 7 hours of gameplay. OpenCritic gives it an 83%. This is about like one of the best reviewed games that we've seen so far. That's just crazy there. That is really crazy that the game that's the sex game is the best received and best reviewed, but like I said, sex sells. Next we have Higurashi When They Cry, How, Chapter 1, Onikakushi, I guess that's how that's, Onikakushi. So this is one of the recognizable visual novel games from Japan. This one is not tagged nudity or sex. This is, I think, a dark, horrific storyline. Don't let the cute moe anime girls trick you. That's typically how it goes, is they but 90% positive, 961 user reviews. There's a whole bundle of these games. Again, maybe I would never cover a Japanese visual novel because it doesn't have full audio in English. But if I was, this probably is one of the ones that I should cover. Like, just because it is very recognizable as their as a series. The game that inspired the mega hit anime series returns with a brand new character art. So it went on to do cross-media, which they do cross-media promotion in Japanese games all the time. So there is something to know about that. Like, something starts as a light novel or a manga or a visual novel, and then it gets an anime, and then maybe it gets an OVA movie. A direct-to-video movie is what OVA or OAV means. Or maybe it gets a live-action movie. They just continuously promote it and promote it and promote it and make it a bigger deal, because fans can be very ravenous of a lot of these visual novels, way more than you would think. Like, if you're coming from a Western perspective, you would think visual novels were nothing and nobody played them, and they didn't even need to be on Steam. And Valve actually agreed with you for the longest time until they started listing them on Steam, and then they ended up being a significant portion of the games that were selling on Steam. So it's always important to keep somewhat of an open mind and realize that there are audiences out there you may very well not know about, or niche fan bases you may not know about. Moving on, we have Hitman, which, like, I want to cover Hitman, the reboot of the series. I don't know what really the first season of Hitman, which is basically what this is, because the second season is going to be sold as Hitman 2. Although a lot of the levels in Hitman 1 are getting somewhat ported to Hitman 2, as I understand it. So maybe it's not even worth it to get Hitman 1. Maybe you just jump straight to Hitman 2. But also, this was so oddly released that you'd get a mission every week. It was a games as service style of gameplay. It's like how Hearthstone gives you a weekly tavern brawl, and only in that week can you do that. The Hitman had elusive targets and missions, and they released level packs and map packs in little bits after a certain amount of time. So I don't know what the definitive complete edition really would feel like. I guess at the end of the day, that's the only kind of version I could have ever really critically reviewed, because I wasn't financially stable enough to buy Hitman when it was brand new and cover it as it was getting its updates every week. But I would like to cover this somewhat. I'm not sure if there is a real story that you can finish. It says the main story is 10 hours, the completionist is 91 hours. It probably falls somewhere closer to 27 hours than 10 hours, but maybe not. Maybe I would just burn through the Hitman reboot. I have a bunch of the old Hitman games, but they don't run on PC, so I covered the one Hitman game that occurred before the reboot, but that was a pretty ridiculous story, and I don't think the reboot went in that direction. You were fighting like assassins dressed as nuns in leather, or in spandex leather outfits in the game before the Hitman reboot. I don't remember what it was called, whether it was Blood Money or something else. Moving on though, Hitman 2, oh, no duh. Don't really need to put this on the follow list, even though it's not out yet. There might be some point that it makes sense to purchase Hitman 1 before Hitman 2 comes out, but it's probably too little too late at this point by the time this airs. Seems like the Gold Edition gives you Expansion 1 and 2 and exclusive in-game items. It'll be interesting to see now that IO Interactive is no longer under control of its parent company, I believe Square Enix, but I could be wrong. It may have not been Square Enix, it may have been Konami or something worse. Now that they're their own independent company, it'll be interesting to see how they release this game and sell this game, and whether it sells better or worse. Clearly they had to go with Warner Brothers Interactive to publish it, so they still needed some support there, so they're not 100% indie as far as the relationship. Next we have Hive Swap Friend Sim, which is a, let's see, seems like a comedic episodic visual novel set in the Homestuck Hive Swap universe, which I don't know if this is a comic that I've never heard of or what, but clearly it's rated very positively. To get the rest of them, though, you're gonna have to spend $12.87 for what seems to me to be probably a pretty simplistic visual novel game, but people like it. And then there's another game called Hive Swap Act 1 that came out in 2017. By this developer. This really is a game I should probably make a decision on, but I guess it's a weird looking game, and I love weird games, so I'll leave it on the wish list for that. Now, Hive Swap Act 1, on the other hand, looks a lot more like a video game to me than just a visual novel. And this is much more interesting looking. Of course, the problem with this now is it's only Act 1. It came out September 14th, 2017. Do I put this on the wish list, or do I say do I not? See, I don't know where this Homestuck universe, it's underlined, but it's not even a link to anything. So the game is set before the Homestuck universe. I want Act 2. It's not a game I backed 6+ years ago by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't get into Act 1 at all, which is apparently is good for me because by the looks of it, you'll never see future acts, so why be let down by cliffhangers? And if we do well, why would it take another 2+ years for 3 more acts? This guy put $250 into this Kickstarter, and this was posted October 20th, so yeah. That's the thing. This is the thing why I hate Kickstarter, and because of that I'm going to remove this game from the wish list and the previous game, because these games, if they're kickstarted, never get finished, and even if they are finished, they're never what they're sold as, or they never live up to the hype. So Hive Swap Friend Sim and Hive Swap Act 1 both getting removed. It's weird though that this came out after the Kickstarter too, so you kind of know the game is completely abandoned, that this game is completely abandoned at this point. And whatever this comic is, I don't even want to know what this comic or webcomic or whatever it is, or if it's a cartoon on some channel I don't recognize. Like, I don't even want to know. I don't even care, because you've poisoned the well basically of my interest in this entire universe, instead of running a Kickstarter and getting people more interested into your comic or TV show or whatever. Moving on though, we have Hob. Hob I definitely want to play. It's a AA game from Runic Games. It's not, didn't feel like it was super well reviewed or a super long game, but it seems like it's fine now. People like it. Maybe there's been some patches. This is from the developers of Torchlight and Torchlight 2. So I could certainly see people saying, hey, how about we get more Torchlight games instead of Hob? But then they are making a free-to-play Torchlight game, but it's like an online MOBA thing, and it's not being developed by this company, apparently. Or at least, maybe, if it is, that it doesn't have a page. Alright, let's... So, I definitely want to play Hob. It feels kind of like a good equivalent of a Mario game. It's from the makers of Torchlight 2. So if I type in Torchlight here, yeah, the new Torchlight game that's in development doesn't have a Steam page yet, so it might be being made by Runic Games. Let's see, controller strongly recommended. No, I think I probably own Torchlight 1 and Torchlight 2, so this bundle might be pretty cheap. But I bet it's not as cheap as just buying it separate. It's nice to see soundtracks that have the free lossless audio compression files on top of MP3s. That's always nice. Kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, I guess, to make a WAV file download, which would be the other option, or just MP3s alone. Then you have bad quality audio. Like most of the times though, you see a soundtrack as DLC, you have no idea what it is, and Steam kind of hides the fact that you own soundtracks. If you bought probably 50 games on Steam, you probably by default own the soundtrack to at least a few of them and won't even have ever known where to look. Next we have Hockey Space, which is an air hockey simulator game, or at least I thought that's what it was, I think, and that's why I put it on the wish list. But now that I look at it a little bit more detailed, I don't think this is actually a game that's worth having on the wish list. And by the way, it came out June 20th and there's no reviews. And as much as I would love to find a hidden gem of a game, I doubt I have in this case. Like, I doubt I ever would. So it kind of looks like it's good. This game is great if you're having a disco. Yeah, it's too flashy, the animations. Hockey Space probably should never been on the wish list in the first place. Take it off now. Correct that problem. There isn't a ton of games like that though. Like most of the games on the wish list met at least the low level first pass requirements. Next we have Hollow Knight, which has been overhyped and talked about a lot, so I can't really take it off even if I wanted to. It's yet another Metroidvania game, bowing down here to the masses with 26,000 reviews, 94% positive. Hollow Knight is a game that I should cover. In fact, so much should I cover it, I'll even put it at the top of my wish list, even though in all honesty it hasn't caught my attention. Maybe it plays a lot better than these screenshots look. This doesn't look bad at all, it just looks a little dark and generic. Next we have Home Behind, which is an RPG survival indie game. See, in Home Behind, you take the role of a refugee cast out of your homeland by a band of rebels. Your home and the peace you enjoyed has been destroyed and your family has disappeared. Can you survive the struggle and make it to the safety of Europe? So this is like a political refugee style simulator game, or Oregon's Trail clone. Looks like it has some mini games. This does not look bad. This does not look bad at all. Yeah, it's just a modern Oregon's Trail style game with a slightly political message. See, there's an endless mode DLC that apparently costs extra money, $2.99. That kind of sucks. They're screwing you out of that. Everybody reviews it positively. What else has this developer made? Nothing. What is this publisher published? This is the publisher that publishes a bunch of random weird things, including Detention, a Korean horror game, or at least I think it's Korean. Yeah, Home Behind is gotta stay. I don't see any reason why it should leave. Next we have Home Sweet Home, which I just saw somebody playing this game. Does this require VR? Because if it does, then I can't play. If it doesn't, then like maybe also this probably is a good enough game with the reviews that it is a good VR game. I just want to make sure that you can play it without VR. 9 hours. Let's see. It would be in this about the game section if it said anything about can you play it without VR. Like, these are really bad key features too. Thai horror, environmental based on the Thai horror setting, and the narrative is inspired by Thai myths, which is interesting. Challenging gameplay, focus on stealth gameplay which requires players' skill to overcome, and diversity of gameplay, puzzles and investigations are integrated into the game for a variety of gameplay. That's not a native English speaker writing that. VR option is amazing. Apparently it is just an option. Okay. There also normally would be a red warning box if you had to have VR. So yeah, Home Sweet Home. Maybe if I got this game I would cover it next year during the October month. But this is definitely not just a simplistic asset flip horror game. You look at the effort and detail that's put in these scenes. That's not just random junk strewn about or empty dark screen sections. So yeah, moving on though. Next we have Homesick, which you would think is a horror game, but it kinda isn't. And it's a kind of puzzle game where you see symbols and you learn what the symbols mean, and eventually you get like every letter of the alphabet and you realize it, and you're in this like distant future where it was a human world at some point, but now it's nature has reclaimed it. I believe there's I think there's more puzzles than just finding the letters of the alphabet. Yeah, you explore an abandoned building. It's a pretty good game. Came out in 2015. I definitely wanted to cover it. Still want to cover it. I imagine most people will have forgotten about it. It looks still very good. And in all fairness, this very possibly could be a slightly indie asset flip style game if it weren't for the fact that they didn't just flip the assets, they specifically decided where to put them and place them. Oh yeah, and I forgot about these dark sequences with the axe. That actually isn't a significant part of the story as much as it might seem. Let's see. The problem with Homesick though is the price. $14.99 seems like it's not terrible if it goes down more. It's been as low as $5.09. But I think it probably started even a little bit higher than $14.99, and that was the problem. It was just, this isn't a super long game, 2 hours to 4 hours of gameplay. All-time peak of 77 really doesn't mean too much, but also it does imply a little bit about how few people played the game. And this developer hasn't made anything else, but that's not terrible. I would like to hear them announce something different. Probably not Homesick 2. But yeah, if they announced a new game, that'd be good. Next we have Horde Zombie Outbreak. This one I can just put on the follow list unless I see something immediately here that makes me want to remove it. I think there's a very specific reason why this is on the wish list, because you are the zombies and you control this horde, kind of like the Snake game but with just a lot more characters. So that might play very well, but it's early access right now. It just needs to be on the follow list. We'll check back next year on it. Let's see, we have Horizon Chase Turbo, a 2018 game that certainly doesn't look like 28 level standards as far as racing games, which have very high visual requirements. This doesn't look terrible, but then again, this also very much could just be a simplistic, low polygon style game. But it does have reviews. 100% in the last 30 days, 90%, 97% overall. I guess that leaves it on the wish list. It probably won't be the one racing game I pick to buy next time I buy a racing game, but I'll leave it on the wish list. Next we have Hostel, which is a point-and-click adventure game from 2017. It's 47 reviews, 87% positive. So, yep, that doesn't look too bad. It looks a lot like the game that Steven Spielberg made for LucasArts called The Dig, that I've covered on my channel. So, yeah, keep that on the wish list. Next we have Hot Lava. This game I don't think has enough reviews yet. The idea is it funny, and there have been several games that have announced themselves on this. You're playing, it seems like as an action figure in this instance, as or different characters. They all look like action figures though. And the floor is lava, so you have to run and jump. I'm not sure that this has got much of a single player experience, or if there's going to be like a storyline experience here, so it's kind of questionable just how this is all going to actually break down into a game. So if you're playing as an action figure, you're also playing as an action figure that's rather big. See, these feel like these are specifically designed levels, not some random generator, or maybe you could get a level editor or somewhat in this. Maybe it would start moving a little too fast and become a too difficult of a game. So this is from Clay, which made Don't Starve Together and Oxygen Not Needed, Not Included, and Invisible Ink. Do they have any other upcoming releases? Also, yeah, Griftland and some more Don't Starve DLC. So this, it's interesting. It's developed by Clay, but it didn't even seem like it came up on their list. But it seems like it's available right now. It's an open beta. I guess that's the deal, is that the open beta is happening right now. I'm gonna put this in the follow list though. There's at least a couple other The Floor is Lava ideas on Steam. At least one more in my wish list that we've already seen that is basically this idea. Next we have Hot Tin Roof, the Cat War Fedora, which is a weirdo adventure game from, I believe, the developer of another game I liked called Joan on Fire. Yeah, Joan's on Fire, which is a pretty fun game I play on my cell phone, so I'd be willing to cover that for my channel. They always go with the square blocky vision. Now Spartan Fist, on the other hand, I don't think I decided to even put that on the follow list because it didn't look that interesting. But to get back to the original game we were looking at, I'm not 100% sure how the game plays. Let's see. Scouring for clues in a 3D side-scrolling world, grab your fedora and revolver, dive into the noir mystery, and become Emma Jones, the only PI partner to a cat named Frankie. Sounds slightly interesting, so I'll leave it on the wish list. Jones on Fire, though, is kind of just an infinite runner where you're trying to save the cats. So you're jumping over fire logs and sliding under fire and getting this long chain of as many cats as you can collect as possible as this fire woman, I assume. This is Jones and Frankie. So the story starts with this game, and then it goes to the previous game we just looked at. Where Spartan and Fist is, I think, just a straight up boxing game. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I want this on my wish list, but maybe I will. I'll put it on the follow list. Not too many people have reviewed it yet. So yeah, we'll just add this to the follow list and we'll just move forward. And we're certainly not making a lot of progress. Next we have Hotel Transylvania 3, Monsters Overboard. Tie-in with the movie Hotel Transylvania 3 should be on the follow list. I liked Hotel Transylvania 1 and 2 as far as the movies. I don't know if that translates into a game series, and it's odd that the game series is starting with the third movie, so there isn't like a game tie-in for Hotel Transylvania 1 or 2. No telling how good this game really would be. I don't think this developer, they've made a bunch of other like cartoon tie-in things and not much else. And this publisher, I imagine, is just publishing the same games, same cartoon tie-in games, kids games. See, this is the type of game that is you're gonna get ripped off and pay $30 for something that's probably worth $5. And as a YouTuber, if I want to cover it, I probably need to cover it as soon as possible, and thus I'm putting a huge amount of both time and money investment into covering a kid's game that very possibly would not pay off at all, or might hit it hugely big on YouTube and be a super popular video that gets me millions of views and subscribers. Like that's always the hope, right? When chasing a trend. Next we have Hotline Miami. I am certainly bowing down to just the grand audience here. It's a top-down twin-stick shooter as far as I understand it, and it's just that it's so overwhelmingly rated positively. People like it, so it's staying on the wish list. Personally, I would take it off. Next we have House Flipper, which again might be chasing a trend. This game was popular for a short brief time where people were playing it and house flipping. Inherently, like the PC PC builder simulation game that we looked at earlier, the problem with House Flipper, I think, is that you're not getting anywhere close to the nitty-gritty on what is required to be done in a house, and I'm not sure where these houses are, so what electrical standard that outlet really was supposed to be following. But like construction, remodeling, even cleaning, for the most part, is a very hands-on job, and it's simplifying it down to a game level, but then it's not simplifying it down to a very fun game as far as it looks like to me. It seems like what you're really doing is just clicking a lot and playing a simulation of selling the house for money. The real lesson I think people should learn from this game is to not flip houses and not speculate on real estate, because that's the thing that caused the housing bubble. It's the thing that right now has, I believe it's 11 empty houses for every one homeless person in the United States. Now, questionable about, are all 11 of those houses livable? Probably not, but I bet at least one of them is. But yeah, these are clearly very wrecked houses that you're buying to start off with, and then often when you're flipping a house, you're hiding the internal problems and only fixing the visible things. This is a very ugly way to make a bathroom, by the way. Just hideous. This looks like it's designed to murder somebody in. Like, tiled to the roof in the exact same style and the exact same color. No shower curtain, shower rod at all. You have to assume that there's just drains on the floor. Yeah, and a tiny little mirror with no vanity lights whatsoever and no storage space. A radiator that's taking up an entire wall. Little bits of storage space here, little bits of storage space here. Although, what is this made out of? Because it's probably gonna rot. If it's wood, so is this, particularly with no shower curtain. That's no way to design it. Oh, by the way, I suppose it's worth mentioning that I did take a year in architectural class, so I kind of have a small knowledge on a drafting class, drawing how buildings would be laid out. So I'm no professional at it, but I do have something. And then I have some experience on owning houses and decorating houses, and having to deal with trying to get houses repaired or repairing them myself. Moving on, we have Hover, which looks like a very fast-paced speedrunning game. Is it multiplayer only? It says it has some single-player element. I imagine this is on the wish list because it's a Jet Set Radio clone of sorts, and it looks cool, although it's not exactly what Jet Set Radio was, but it's a skating game, sort of close. What else do I need to know about this game? It's $19.99, which is a lot. However, it's both single and multiplayer experience. At any time you can instantly switch from offline mode to online mode. Okay. It's 9 to 20 hours of gameplay. Yeah, I see no reason why Hover should be removed from the wishlist. Although I don't think it's unique enough. It's from Pladius, which I believe I know this publisher. Sounds familiar. Yeah. And let's see if this developer, like, we're basically looking at every developer and to see if they've developed anything else, and it seems like they really haven't for the most part. Yeah, almost, I would say 70% of all developers on Steam have only developed one game, which inherently means the whole system needs to, the way that's being shown and depicted needs to be rethought, and perhaps the entirety of how video games are developed needs to be rethought. Or maybe not. Maybe most artists create one good masterpiece in their lifetime and that's it, and then they move over to other companies, or they move over to other fields, or they just retire on the profits of that one game. I doubt very many people, if anybody, retires on the profits of that one game, with the exception of maybe Notch, the creator of Minecraft. And even he is working on other games. How to Survive is 63% in the last 30 days, but 82% overall. So there's a pretty big disparagement there, or difference there. Yeah, if I use the right word. Tons of glitches, feels half-baked. I played co-op with a friend and it feels impossible to finish the game because of the constant lags. Very frustrating. Bugs out with a PS4 controller. Humor goes from funny to painful after 20 minutes. The gameplay isn't worth keep playing. This can't co-op. It's just waste of time. Meh, fun for a while. Boring. Camera mode is just horrible. Doesn't worth any money. Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement from what I'm seeing here. This looks like it's too simplistic of it's like a survival PUBG Fortnite clone idea that came in 2013, so it was probably before all of those. How to Survive 1 is 82% positive overall. How to Survive third person standalone. Rugby games. Yeah, there's nothing this developer has made either that looks good. So yeah, How to Survive is getting removed from the wish list. This publisher 505 Games. They published Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, and Payday Ultimate Edition. I recognize 505 Games, but even their lineup of everything they published is a mixed bag. Let's see. Next we have HTOL Nick the Firefly. This sounds like this is translated from Japanese very poorly, but it's rated very positively. So if this is just a puzzle game, it might not be anything that's too big of a problem. Or if this is a horror game and this is where this ridiculous name is coming from. It's not beyond the Japanese to create very ridiculous names for things. Right. You're led by Lumen's light. So it seems like this girl has two fairies, and you have to control the two fairies to get the girl to where you want her. And it doesn't seem like you control the girl at all. Interesting. That's a interesting gameplay mechanic. Let's see. Well, it's rated very positively. It's $9.99. What's the DLC? An art book and a soundtrack. And there's some more NIS spooky games you could buy in the bundle. Yeah, I don't see anything here that would take this off the wish list. That's an interesting gameplay idea around a weird name and a probably weird Japanese story. Hey, I think we might be close to the end now. If we're at HUE, Hue is a vibrant, award-winning puzzle adventure. It says it's 93% positive. Let's see how this game plays. Seems like the character you play as takes on the hue of the background you're playing. Okay. And then when you're in a window frame, well, no, apparently at any point you can change the colors. Now it looks like this might be kind of a complicated puzzle game to have so many different colors that you have to switch between. And I don't think I'm colorblind, but I wouldn't 100% trust myself to not accidentally switch between the light pink and the darker pink and the red. The other colors seem to be kind of consistently, but then it's freezing time, I think, to help with that too. So yeah, Hue can stay on the wish list. Imagine maybe this isn't a super long game. 4 to 5 hours. 5 hours might be pushing your luck. And I would hope that you start the game and you can only swap between 1 or 2 colors and you have to unlock several other things. Look at all those awards. That's the level of rewards you'd like to have, but half of those said nominee too. Moving on. We have Hunted the Demon's Forge from 2011. I think with its mixed reviews, this one can get removed. Let's see. What can we see from this? But I don't even have a video. It actually looks pretty good. So it must just play horribly or not run at all. Yeah, because it's adventure, co-op, RPG. Now, really, should this be the RPG? See, I could imagine somebody doing a remaster of a game like this pretty easily $4.99. Unreal Engine 3. Let's look at what the reviews say first, I guess. No co-op unless you buy 2 copies of the game, then play LAN. Online co-op isn't available anymore. You need to use third-party software just to play online. Why am I seeing hovering over Bob Saget? Bob Swaggett there. No split screen for Steam version, only on console. Check the link before. Online servers no longer available. This game server is closed. Only possible to play co-op is to play LAN or create a VPN for online LAN play, which sadly I don't know how to. Not even YouTube videos can help me. If you're able to get a working VPN, then you are more welcome to play it, as it was a fun game when I played it on the Xbox 360. Also, if you figure out how to create a working VPN, please tell me. Extremely clear warning, I'm using Windows 10 Home. I'm not sure if that might be part of your problem there. Connecting to a VPN on Windows 10 Home may not be available as an option without some third-party software. But where do you VPN into is the bigger question, because you can make a VPN all you want, which would then connect you to somebody else. I heard about this software called Parsec, P-A-R-S-E-C, as in the measurement of space distance, and it specifically is designed to do exactly what this game needs. It's designed to let people play co-op games. Now, I'm not 100% sure it's designed to let people play co-op games across the internet for every single game, or if it's just old games that are emulated, but it certainly would be a starting space. And it used to, theoretically, these things used to not work very well, but now they seem to start working pretty well. People have good enough internet speeds for it to work. Also, LibRetro, the emulator software, has net play options where you can play something like an old NES game over the internet, 2-player, pretty easily. Puzzles are not great. If you take the wrong turn, tough luck, you can't go back. I finished it, but the ending was disappointment. It's not the game you want to replay either. So people really like this game when it first came out. It's just the problem is the servers are down. It's 12 to 17 hours for an RPG, which is actually a considerably small amount of commitment. I didn't see anything that said the game was abandoned. It's from the developer who made the Bard's Tale 4 and Torment Tides of Numeria. So there's a couple mixed review games here in the Bard's Tale. Ooh, I should really remove this from the wish list. I really should. Don't get tricked by the elf girl's cleavage. I should remove this game. It's too old. It's from a developer who doesn't really have anything that puts it in good company. It may be published by Bethesda, but that doesn't inherently mean anything. Half of Bethesda's games aren't good. Yeah, this has to go. I don't have enough time in my life to play mediocre RPGs, even if they're short. Let's see. Can I highlight all of the text? Nope. So I'll just type in the H and save myself some effort. There we go. Next we have Hyper Light Drifter. This is a very positively reviewed pixel graphics, I think top-down twin stick style game. It looks a lot like Demon Souls, but a little bit more of a game there. maybe a bit of a Metroidvania style game. People like it. I think I had a bit of a feeling that this might be a little difficult. 84%, 7 hours to 28 hours. Yeah, I don't see a reason that it shouldn't be on the wish list. So I'll leave it there. And I'm suspecting that there may be just a couple more games to cover. Maybe or maybe not. Maybe we'll go through a whole list of Hyper games. This one can just go on the follow list, the Hyper Sentinel. I'm not 100% sure why it's even on the wish list though. Like, there really doesn't look like there's anything here that would make me want to play this game, because these side-scrolling shooting games are too fast. They tend to become these bullet hell games that fill the screen with far too much to look at. Yeah, I don't see any reason why I should put this even on the follow list. I'm just going to take it off the wish list. If somebody comes back and says, oh, Hyper Sentinel is actually really good, then I'll consider it. I also don't recognize this developer or this publisher. I bet they haven't published anything else. Well, they got a demo for something else. And that's it. Next we have Hyper Devotion Noir Goddess Blackheart. This is, I imagine, part of the Hyper Neptunia game series, or Mega Dimension Neptunia game series. It's got memes. It's got the memes. According to this tag, JRPG, RPG, anime, strategy. Seems like you're playing as chibi characters, actual chibi characters. And what seems like a strategy RPG. Doesn't seem like there's actually too much on this. It seems like it might be a cell phone port, but it's 83% positive. The Hyper Devotion Noir DLC collection will bump it up to 20, and for to buy the complete Neptunia bundle, you're talking $200. So it would certainly be a large commitment to play all the Neptunia games. Oh, it does have partial nudity and sexual themes according to that. 68% on OpenCritic. I don't see any reason to take this off until I can decide whether I want the Neptunia series at all. I imagine I will eventually determine that the Neptunia series is not the JRPG series to play. All that being said, Disgaea 5 is missing all of its online features on Steam, so that very possibly may not be the JRPG game to play either. Next we have Hypersensitive Bob, which is a roguelike. It has 31 reviews, 77% positive. This looks like, though, a simplistic one-screen style of game. Seems a little too simplistic. It's a roguelike sky platformer crawler where Bob fights a myriad of forms of allergies. So he's fighting his allergies. Some extreme situations may require lobotomy or surgery. Even laxative that may prove to be necessary for Bob's survival. Loot vaccine vials, discover crazy item combos, and encounter a wave of enemies. See, this sounds like a funny idea for a game, but maybe not really worth playing. Maybe if I got it cheap. I have some questions about how long. Well, it seems like the average player plays for 3 hours and 4 minutes, so that's actually pretty long gameplay amount. Is this company really in good company? No. Let's see. The only other game that is well reviewed is this Westard VR game. But I guess I'll be generous and leave this on the wish list. Probably will never buy it though. I'm gonna have to learn to stop being so generous though and start eliminating more games. Next we have Hyper Run, which is 84% positive with 32 reviews from 2017. Let's see. I'm not sure if this is the game to keep. I think I've seen better versions of this kind of game, this F-Zero clone, as I call them. And the only slight difference is it seems like you're playing a motorcycle instead of playing a car. And possibly you're doing a ridiculous amount of drifting. How realistic is it to play a game like the way this video is showing me? Is this super easy? Is this just press forward, or is this finger blistering insane? And there's some search engine optimization in this description. 1990 classics like F-Zero, Akira, I guess in the sense that there's a motorcycle, and Tony Hawk's ... See, this other developer, other games they've developed are all mixed. I think Hyper Run could be removed. I just don't think it's going to actually be that good of a game. And then none of the race games I've looked at, I've even started to look at or consider, like the amount of levels and racetracks there are. That would be another thing to consider, although it's often hard to figure out how many they are or how long they are. And that leaves us back to where we started. So it's been about 3 hours. Nope, it's been about 4 hours, and we've gone through all the H's. The good news is I'm fairly certain that Eyes will not be the longest of list, so that might be a 2-hour experience, just going through things that start with I. But then J might be pretty short too. K's might be moderately long, so you might get a couple of short ones until we are done. As it is, this is as far as we are from the beginning of the wish list to the bottom, so we haven't even made it to a midpoint. We are theoretically a quarter of the way done. That being said, as I go and do the work of removing all the things from the wish list, this page theoretically might get a little bit shorter, depending on whether I actually reload this page. If the page got a little bit shorter, we might be a little bit further than we think. Anyways, that's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. When you subscribe, please click the notification bell. If you want a friend or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net, all of those links are down below in the description box. And if you want to support me, you can either support me through Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game you see on my wish list, or a game you'd just like to see me cover, or you can also just gift gift cards if you don't want to make a decision. That's it for this recording. Thank you for watching.